now I'm a member. And who could forget? Thanks to my father who served in the military, I'm now eligible for incredible member benefits. Call 1-855-800-2102 or visit NavyFederal.org today. Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission. Navy Federal is insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
An estimated 80% of Americans aren't getting their recommended daily amount of physical activity. It's time to move and keep moving, America. And when you need help, physical therapists and physical therapist assistants are by your side. Be your own champion. Choose more movement. Choose better health. Choose physical therapy. Find out more information and a physical therapist at choosept.com/NE. Brought to you by the American Physical Therapy Association of Nebraska.
Join the movement to end breast cancer as we know it for everyone. When supporting the American Cancer Society making strides against breast cancer, you're helping save lives through groundbreaking research and patient support. Join the movement today at makingstrideswalk.org/Nebraska.
Velocity Clinical Research in Omaha conducts clinical trials for investigational treatments and research. Typical studies involve medications for high cholesterol, diabetes, infectious diseases, and acne. Some current studies include low T, RSV, fall influenza, pediatric obesity ages 12 to 17, adult obesity, and asthma. Velocity also performs vaccine studies. Studies are medically supervised and do not require insurance. Velocity recognizes your time is valuable, so they offer compensation for study-related time and travel. Find out more at velocityclinicaltrials.com.
Brent Rasmussen of Mortgage Specialists.
Over the last couple of years, home buying may have seemed like being on a small boat on a very wavy ocean. First it's down, then it's up, down again and up again. Lather, rinse, repeat. Well, here's the good news. Rates are much better than a year or even a month ago. Right now, you'll find that some houses have had the for sale sign in the front yard a little longer. Some sellers are even taking contingency offers. What does that mean for you? It means buyers are having more and more say in setting terms. And if you're buying, that's a big deal. So don't get scared getting into the market. House values continue to rise. The sooner you get in, the faster you gain equity. Give us a call at Mortgage Specialists and let us see if we can make something happen for you.
Click mtg-specialists.com. NMLS number 5918, Equal Housing Lender.
I'm Chris Rose with NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network. The Vikings picked off Aaron Rodgers 3 times in a 6-point win over the Jets in London. Minnesota now 5-0. Lamar Jackson, 4 touchdown tosses. Ravens rallied to beat the Bengals 41-38 in overtime. Texans kicker Kaimi Fairbairn hit a 59-yarder as time expired as the Texans beat the Bills 23-20. Houston improves to 4-1. Jags got their first W of the year, a 3-point win over the Colts. Jaden Daniels and the Commanders topped the Browns 34-13. Washington now 4-1. Caleb Williams threw 2 scores to former Panther DJ Moore as the Bears beat Carolina 36-10. Kyler Murray threw for a score, ran for another in the Cards' 1-point win over the Niners. The G-Men go to Seattle and win 29-20. Bo Nix 3 total scores in the Broncos' 34-18 win over the Raiders. And on Sunday night, Dak Prescott threw a game-winning touchdown in the final minute as the Cowboys beat the Steelers by 3. This has been NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network.
1 in 4 Americans have a disability. I'm one of them. I'm also a working mom who cares deeply about making sure every child with a disability thrives by getting their access needs met. We've got a trusted ally by our side. Easter Seals provides children and families the foundation for lifelong success through early learning programs, skills training, and prep for college and career. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours. Join us at easterseals.com.
Football season is here. Do you have your picks in on Sleeper? Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and you could win up to 100 times your money. For new users, Sleeper will even match your first deposit with up to $100 credit to your account. Just download the Sleeper app today and use code MONDAY for a credit up to $100 match on your first deposit. That's code MONDAY. Must be 18 years in most states and in state where it is legal. Promo code and other restrictions apply. Visit sleeper.com. Please wager responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Sponsored by Sleeper.
Whether it's pro or college, the app to bet football is Circus Sports Iowa. Circus Sports is sports betting the way it should be. Circus Sports Iowa has high betting limits, the lowest holds, and exceptional customer service. Bet all your favorite teams in every game this season. Spreads, props, futures, or in-game, Circus Sports has it. Fund and bet like a pro anywhere, anytime in Iowa. Download your new bookie today at circusports.com. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Roofing, siding, and gutters. Make the right call with the rooferys at John Higgins Weather Guard.
1620 The Zone.
Huskers go I formation. Raiola under center. They are bunched up around the line of scrimmage. Hand off to Dell. Dell off the right side. Touchdown, Nebraska. Dante Dowdell finds pay dirt. 6-0 Big Red. Let those balloons loose.
Easy math, Sharpie. 2 times 3 is 6. Give me all of them.
Huskers 7, Scarlet Knights 0. Raiola's going to go under center. Tight formation left and right. Barney's kind of a wing now. He goes in motion. And motion's back. Turn. Inside handoff. It goes to Nair to the outside to the 5, and he is in. Touchdown's an Iron Baller. It's an Iron Baller off the right side. Little trap play almost to the right. 6 points, Nebraska. They lead it 13-0.
So slick with the personnel packages and the motion. All eyes on jet sweep. No inside handoff. I mean, it's just a thing of beauty. And we got to go a little backwards. It's 18, but 8 minus 1 is 7. After this extra point, give me all of them.
Buschini, the hobbling Brian. Buschini is in punt formation. Huskers have had 2 punts blocked. They snap it back. They're fake. Buschini throws it down the field. Matt is caught. Charged at the 40-yard line by Jalen Lloyd. It's a first down. The Huskers on a fake, and Buschini rifles a pass to Jalen Lloyd all the way to the Rutgers 37-yard line. Kelly McInnes motions a wide out. Gets the snap, looking left, throwing left, and nearly picked up. Huskers have stopped him. Will take over on downs at the 2-yard line. What a stand by the Black Shirts. And this is going to be a fun postgame. Going to be a fun locker room. Hard-fought win. Bye week coming up. Chance to heal some bumps and bruises. Carry some momentum against a team in 2 weeks in Indiana. It's got a ton of momentum. They're ranked, undefeated, at a spot for Indiana football they haven't been at maybe ever. So that's going to set up a fun matchup in 2 weeks. Huskers 14, Rutgers 7. On a warm day here in Lincoln.
Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
I just got 3 things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine!
Hey, and that might be a tough proposition with the football this weekend. Good morning, everybody. Welcome in. We kick off a Monday, the 7th of October. How the heck are we? It's kind of a victory Monday for everybody.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
You got
Everyone.
baseball.
Yeah.
You got football.
Yeah.
You got life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gorgeous
Yeah.
day today.
Oh, it's going to
Victory
be
life.
awesome. So this is the problem, though, with this shift and the football that was really good. This weekend we went a little bonkers. We had awesome college football. We had awesome NFL. I mean, you got to love the sport where people in Nashville, Tennessee find out what a goalpost is, that all of those bachelorette parties that were happening on Broadway, as people were marching by with a goalpost, they're like, what is this fun?
Yeah.
And where is it going? And why are they interrupting our bachelorette party? But this football this weekend screws with you if you have like a morning schedule where, you know, you're up like at 4 a.m. and you got to be on the air at 6, because Saturday night into Sunday morning, Miami and Cal
delivered,
finished at 1:30.
Yeah.
Always remember this, kids.
Damn.
And you too. is that Coke always wins over woke past midnight.
That's no
like
lie.
If you're gonna be woke, do it before midnight.
Yeah.
But after midnight, go for the Coke. And Miami, somehow, some way, with the help of the ACC, I think there's a song in there.
Yep.
They survived and they rallied and they won and they stay unbeaten. And then yesterday, you're already like, oh my gosh, now I got to go to bed. I can't stop watching this. First of all, Reese Davis, I want to see if he's going to lose his voice. I can't stop watching this. And then you got to get up early yesterday to watch the game in London. And then you're like, all right, I have waited all day for this.
For Sunday night.
And then all I get is Jason Garrett and no rain delay theater on NBC. They could have run a rerun of Seinfeld.
Or one of the Super Bowls.
And then the Cowboys this morning at about 12:30. I don't know how they won that football game. But the Cowboys rally late, and Dak had a Dak game, Jimmy, as you as the resident Cowboy fan. And
that's what I've heard.
And our football weekend that was just awesome finishes with the Cowboys defeating the Steelers.
Yes. And the Dak sequence of plays there, too, and the final possession.
I'll have to recap this later.
Well, actually, it wasn't really his fault on the fumble, but it was the Cowboy sequence of plays where Dak, sometimes the very underappreciated Dak Prescott had a moment there, recovering a fumble and then the subsequent pass on 4th down for a touchdown. I feel bad for you, Jimmy, for not having to have gone through that emotion.
Oh, I'm good. I'm glad. Yeah, that weather delay, Meg and I were doing the Snapchat, and I basically a lot of F-bombs because she was going to stay up and watch the whole thing.
Who's Meg?
Next door.
Oh,
big,
okay.
Big Steelers fan.
Oh,
Big
gotcha.
Steeler fan.
Gotcha. She was trying to rustle up the talking.
You're like your Snapchat with a Meg. Okay. Does your wife know about this?
What the hell are you doing on Snapchat, you old man?
I've had it for years. I wasn't always old. I had it in my 20s.
I had an Ashley Madison account when I was 14, okay? Yeah, I get that. Pull this leg and it plays Jingle Bells.
Meanwhile, I had a Dolly Madison. Anyway, so weather delay gets to halftime, 6-3 barn burner. I basically was like, F this. I know they're going to find a way to lose. Wake up at 1:30 in the morning to see that it had just ended and that they did win. I was like, well, look at that. So a rare non-loss for the Cowboys. How about that?
Yeah, well, you got to watch you could watch the Drays beat up on the Dodgers a little bit there while waiting.
Well, and that's what I did. We took in a lot of baseball.
Chavez Ravine.
Yeah.
Screw you people that
Good
try to
bounce
throw
back.
stuff at them.
It's going to be nuts in San Diego tomorrow. I want to go.
The Electric Factory will be the atmospheres have been great.
Yeah,
like Philadelphia. You're almost hoping that both teams could lose.
Did Tom Brenneman do something yesterday? By the way.
No.
Well, Castellanos just had the walk-off.
Yeah, it wasn't a home run.
Yeah,
okay, so the bit, people don't know how to follow the bit.
It only happens on home runs.
It only happens on the home run, and it's got to be something that went on earlier in the day. So some think that bit is like worn out, and they tried to overuse it yesterday. It's only when he hits a home run.
Yeah. Just a home run, not anything of significance or any kind of game winner or anything
It's
like
good
that.
to know for my
So we don't know what to do around here because now we are in the first bye week after Nebraska wins against Rutgers. Nebraska played better than Rutgers did playing Rutgers.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
100%.
To find a way to get to 5-1 in a 14-7 game. You know what? Nebraska's 5-1. The alternative could be much worse. I watched a lot of college football this weekend surrounding the Nebraska game. Well, you could, you know what? Don't ever apologize for if you think that was a clunker. Some of you that have black shirts think that was a thing of beauty. Don't ever apologize for a clunker because the alternative could always be worse. If you looked at Nashville, Tennessee, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Minneapolis, Minnesota,
Yep.
don't apologize for being 5-1. Nebraska found a way to get to 5-1, and
baby.
the alternative could be worse.
Just win, baby.
Yeah, so they are 5-1. Most importantly, I think they at least have 2 wins over bowl teams, which is big for me this year. Colorado will be going to a bowl game, or at least I hope so. So that funds my trip to Wimbledon next summer, and then Rutgers will go to a bowl game, despite Greg Schiano not being as good a coach as people make him out to be.
Now, are we talking about the wind part here?
Why don't we talk about just when you play teams that
Monangai
are better than you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rule out Schiano and Schiano.
Well, I mean, it's a trend with 2 coaches from Nebraska against Schiano. I think he's a really good defensive mastermind.
Yeah.
I think when it becomes attention convention, Greg Schiano is Greg Schiano, and they try and hold on, and they hope that you make more mistakes than they do.
Yeah,
and head scratching decision making where you get tied in a knot like they did on Saturday with how to deal with the wind. I mean, the conditions in Lincoln were a factor. You cannot overlook that. They were a factor on both sides. You either used it to your advantage or it became a disadvantage to you. But Rutgers will be going to a bowl game. Yeah. They're a good team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know in college football this year how many great teams or elite teams there are. There might be just 2, Texas and Ohio State.
I like Monongai.
Rutgers is a good team. They're going to a bowl game. So there's 2 wins of your first 5 that are over bowl teams, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. Back to Schiano, and I'm actually going to kind of zero in on Ciarrocca on this part of it, Kirk Ciarrocca. At what point was this game so far out of reach that there were good chunks of the second half where Monongai wasn't even – it wasn't that he wasn't getting his was not a factor. Like the fact that Ethan Kaliakmanis was throwing the ball as much as he did in the second half, wind or no wind, was a bit head-scratching to me because this was the thing that I thought that Illinois did a really good job with Altmaier and using him in the proper spots. Now, mind you, Illinois have much better skill position players, better wide receivers than what Ethan Kaliakmanis has, but this was the old Ethan Kaliakmanis when he was missing wildly. And I didn't understand. I mean, we're talking early in the second half that they were putting the ball in his hands a lot more than I thought, where Monongai had success in the first half.
First quarter.
Yeah, okay, yeah. First
so
quarter.
I'm not going to focus on Ciarrocca.
Because what was it? 8 carries for 64 yards in the first half alone.
He finished 19 of 78.
Yeah.
So whatever they were trying to do with Air Ethan in the second quarter and beyond,
That's a good way
I'm
to
not
put
going to look at Kirk Ciarrocca. I'm going to look at Tony White and how Nebraska adjusted for the last 3 quarters. And I think that needs more of a discussion than whatever Rutgers was trying to do with their offense, because Nebraska put the offensive coordinator in a bind in what they were doing, as Tony White had one of his better days at the office, went deep into his bag.
Mm-hmm.
And he also had a group that has learned from the Illinois game. They were embarrassed against Illinois, and now they're playing with a chip on their shoulder to prove everybody that they're elite, but I also think to get back at people that thought, well, maybe this defense isn't as good as they were, because they bounced back nicely and they went to a whole nother level against Rutgers. So I think it was more Tony White outfoxed an offensive coordinator that is not on the level of Tony White going deep in his bag and did not have adjustments for either a 4-man front, a 5-man front where you had 2 jacks, or what you did with Isaac Gifford. Isaac Gifford played more in the box on Saturday than he's done the entire year. So that's where I would look instead of looking at the OC problems for Rutgers.
And it is obviously fair to bring up because, I mean, when you think of this win for Nebraska, what they did, it was their defense. Without question, it was their defense. And so
I don't think it was the special teams.
Maybe. Well, I mean, Brian Sheen did have a fake punt and
Hope
a very
that
nice
ice bath
throw,
felt
too.
good for
My
you,
man.
too.
Very
my
nice.
my man.
Now actually getting the cheers, the boo, Sheeny chants now. Hey,
when did that
we love a good rude and a sue.
When did that
Now we got a boo. I think it started on
about
Saturday.
3:30 Saturday.
I'm pretty sure it started on Saturday.
Jesus, bring back the light show when it's daylight out. What are we doing here? I just want people to realize something about Saturday. All right, you win, you're 5-1. Boom, you get to the bye week. Whew. You know, the schedule sets up okay for Nebraska. You play 6, you get a bye. You play 3, you got a bye, and then you finish with 3. If you can do the math, that's 12. We heard math in the open.
Yes, we did.
It's a lot of math today.
There is a lot of math today.
Monday.
But okay, I'm going to give you a little bit more math, because in the Cowboy-Steeler game last night, Steelers, for all my Yinzers out there,
Steelers.
Spent some time in Pittsburgh. Beautiful city, lovely people. They love their black and gold. I would hate my god-awful offense right now if I were you, but, you know, that's a different story. You got Russell Wilson going to be starting here soon. But you had a blocked kick in that game. What is the old Urban Meyer stat? Don't go to a steakhouse and, you know, grind, have a young co-ed grind on you. That's not a stat. That's truth. That's life. But the stat, he has a stat that 90% of the time when you have a kick blocked, you lose.
You lose the game, yeah.
Okay. Cowboys won last night.
Yeah.
Nebraska
had 2.
Nebraska not only had 16-20 of zone TV years, but 2.
And they
still
got him
found a
inside
way
the
to win
5-yard line.
Yeah, so I think old Nebraska finds a way to lose Saturday. New Nebraska found a way to keep their head above water when they had 2 kicks blocked.
Yep.
And in the second half, you had a punter throw for 30 yards, and you had a quarterback punt for 29 yards. Yeah. That happened in a real Nebraska game. And if I would have told you that before, I don't know, this season, you'd say, well, Nebraska, they won 14-7.
You're right.
And they're 5-1. They're going into a bye week, and the margin of error in certain spots is very, very small. But they're 5-1 with 6 games ahead, and they have Google Me coming up 2 weeks from now.
They have who?
Google Me.
You say that right. Google Me, Chuck.
Cignetti is like he is. I kind of vibing with him because I think that was a really good hire at IU. But he's on the like the edge of confident, cocky douche canoer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the man's a winner, and he comes right off the Saban tree.
Yeah.
But Nebraska's getting ready to play Google Me, and you're going to hear about Google Me and the IU football program for 2 weeks.
And unfortunately, we don't have a top 25 matchup, at least this week. Now that could change.
Nebraska
That could change.
I think that's the pollsters' problem.
Well, no, what I
This is a good game.
I don't think Nebraska should have been ranked.
Because I would ask why. Because I know you thought they would be ranked after if they won.
Did
they
they
would
cover?
be ranked. No, they did not.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, I thought
Simple as that. Okay.
If it's 21-7,
17-7?
Yeah. Now we're kind of I mean, what picking here? They were 26th or 27th in receiving votes,
right behind USC.
Yeah.
Who fell out, unfortunately.
You'll be proud Saturday. I yelled, "Hey, they didn't cover," and I heard, "Great teams cover."
Good teams cover. Good teams win. Great teams cover. You're right. So here, you guys tell me if I'm far off on this, because as I was consuming the football this weekend, and the football was marvelous.
Football was very good.
The football was great. I think it was one of the better days for the sport of college football.
Well, the Bears had a 27-7 lead at halftime yesterday, too. It was good yesterday.
Yeah, it's always those sneaky Saturdays. You're like,
well, because this Saturday's a banger.
Yep.
Real banger. And we get to crash weddings and watch football around here.
Sure do.
But as I was
Shout out
consuming the football and got up early to watch the game in London between a 40-year-old man and Sam Darnold, who, Sam Darnold struggled yesterday. I'm trying to make a connection here and kind of where Nebraska is after 6 weeks. Wasn't what Nebraska did on Saturday against Rutgers and what the Vikings did to beat the Jets yesterday very similar, where there was one area of your team that was stellar. Defensively, the Vikings were really good against the Jets. What was really good on Saturday in Lincoln?
Special teams.
Defense.
Oh, defense. Yeah, sorry.
Jesus, how much money did Ed Foley give you?
I can't tell you.
But here's how I look at this. And if I'm off, you guys can just slap me. Is good teams find a way to win when things aren't going well, or there's no flow, and maybe you've run into the wall and the other side is outmaneuvering you, but you have one element of your team that is playing stellar and they pick you up. So Nebraska's defense picked up a sputtering offense in the second half, and of course special teams. And Sam Darnold arguably had his worst day of the year with the Vikings, but yet the Vikings found a way to beat the Jets and finished it with a defensive play with an interception at the end, kind of like how Nebraska finished by holding off Rutgers when people in the ballpark probably were going, uh-oh, here we go. Rutgers going to march down the field. And then is Schiano going to go for 2 and just going to break our hearts?
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what? Winning is
smart.
hard.
No, he'd go to overtime.
Winning is hard. and you also got to have some grit, but you also need a break. I think you create your breaks and then you receive breaks. You know what? If you go to church and you say your prayers and eat your vegetables, if you create a break, you're going to get a break.
Yeah.
Look at
vegetables.
Look at in this game. Buford falls down. Pass is coming.
Yep.
Boom. Off the face.
Does anybody else just find that very funny? The way it's one thing.
I don't think Ben Black.
I don't think Ben Black did.
Can't
I
wait
don't think
for
anybody
the
on the
football
Rutgers sideline.
follies.
But when it hits your fingers and you drop it is one thing. But when it just pelts you in the head and you can't recover from that, I don't know. That just
poor dude's in the protocol now.
It was one of the. My initial reaction was like, "Uh-oh," and then it's like,
But take out the defensive part of Saturday in Lincoln. There were a lot of things, and again, when Rutgers goes 9 trips on Nebraska's side of the field, and basically the second half is tilted that way, including 15 of the 19 snaps in the third quarter were in Nebraska's territory, and they only ended up with 1 touchdown.
They punted 4 times in Nebraska territory.
Well, and they only had 1 3-and-out all day.
Yes.
So there were a lot of things that would work against you that all the analytics out there say will work against you, and Nebraska found a way to win. And they're 5-1. You don't look back, you look forward, and now things get real the rest of October.
The thing that analytic-wise that I think worked out very well for Nebraska at the end of the game, when you see that number of 7, I think it was 7.9 was the average down and or the average yards to gain on third down for Rutgers. And so, again, that part of what they wanted to do, being able to run the football and be less predictable when it came to something that they do very well, as opposed to, I go back to what I originally said, when you have to put the football into Ethan Kaliakmanis's hands that many times, and hopefully he can make a play for you if you're Rutgers, that's not typically going to go well for you. And that was the other thing of the third down conversion rate, how many third downs Rutgers would like to get into. All of those things, that was a big part of that game. Yet, if you look at, okay, it's one thing for them to be in, what were they, third down wise? They were in, let me see that.
2 of 14.
Yep, 14 third downs. Yep. So out of those 14, their average was 7.9 yards, as opposed to even something as small as maybe 4.9 to 7.9, to where you're thinking, okay, especially with what they had done with Monangai. And you mentioned some of the defensive adjustments they made up front there in the second quarter. It was genius to the fact that if you could take that away early on, and they were not having success on first and second down and doing what they normally do, this is where it brings the ultimate wild card, who I said it all week. I said it on the Hypecast with the guys at Husker 24/7 Sports, of Ethan Kaliakmanis is a wild card to me. He's an X factor, because if he has to handle the ball in moments where it's not on him, where they can use him as an alternate option, he scares me there, because he's an athletic kid. But when he's in a predictable situation, oh my gosh, you love that if you're the opposing team. And that's what Nebraska defensively was able to do.
That's why I go back to Nebraska. Nebraska played Rutgers football better than Rutgers played football.
100%.
Nebraska wasn't great on first down across the whole course of the game. They were at times, but Rutgers finished third and fourth down, 4 of 20? And Nebraska was 10 of 22.
Yep.
So Nebraska stayed on the field when they had to. Now, it wasn't pretty all the time, but they stayed on the field for the most part. There's just so much that you would just – it's not a game to look at the box score, because you would look at certain parts and go, but you found a way to win. And you also had something that did not happen 2 weeks ago against Illinois. You had guys on defense that are stars, made plays when they need to be stars, or you had guys that were not as established or in the rotation as heavily. 2 weeks ago, Sierra Wright and James Williams showed up. So guys made plays. You got to make plays. I don't have a whistle around my neck, okay, but I have a microphone in front of me. You got to make plays. Okay, there you go. Boys, go out there and make plays. That'd be if I was coaching like 4th grade flag football, I'd be like, go out there and make plays. They would go, so what are we supposed to? Just go make plays. I don't care what you do. Just go make plays.
I'm okay. I know that the defensive conversation, as far as the individual standouts, people are going to point at the 2 guys you brought up right there. James Williams, that was phenomenal. And watching him, just his ability to crash and then come underneath, you could tell he's been working on his craft, and that was awesome to see that pay off. Sierra Wright continues just to be a stud. He's a lot of fun. But you mentioned guys that are a big part of this defense that had better games than they did against Illinois. Who led Nebraska in tackles? Isaac Gifford. Isaac Gifford missed a really bad tackle in the first drive that Rutgers had, where a Monangai cuts, I think it was on a cutback lane, and the only guy that was going to keep him from getting more than 5 yards was Isaac Gifford, and he missed. I mean, he flat out missed, and I'm thinking, oh, boy. But he recovered big time, had a huge game. He had a tough one against Illinois.
I think that one's a hat tip to 5.
That's
good. That's good running back.
He did that a lot. He's impressive. I mean, for people who haven't watched him the last couple games, maybe if you didn't even watch him in the Washington game and you saw him, there's a reason we were talking about him all week. It wasn't like, oh, they just give him the football a lot and eventually he starts getting some yards. No, he's impressive to watch.
That's why Nebraska's effort against him looks even more impressive.
Agreed. Totally agree. And you know, in a lot of ways, because I kept thinking about one of the last defensive outings against a marquee running back that Nebraska had, where they just shut him down. 21 Michigan State, Kenneth Walker. Because Kenneth Walker was on a heater. And up until overtime, I think they had him under 40 yards in that game, and he couldn't get anything. And it wasn't lack of effort. I mean, he had over 25 carries. But what took place in this game, too, is you didn't put him in position there late in the fourth quarter or in overtime to where Monungai, who was bottled up for 3 quarters, couldn't come back and hurt you. So it was great to see. And you even brought up Marquise Buford, where he would say he did not have a good day at the office. I think we could all say he did not have a good
coaster
day.
of a day. He got pulled. He got pulled at the end of the game.
Well, and you remember after we were talking about the Ben Black oopsie daisy. I mean, immediately Matt Rule has him over on the sideline. He wasn't chewing him out, but was just, I don't know if it was you're better than this or calm down or whatever, but I mean, there was immediately Matt Rule's got him over on the side talking to him face to face. Just, I don't know. There was just a lot of things defensively about this game that there were the stars of it, but I think your point is maybe more valid with the collective effort of guys like Ty Robinson, like Nash Hutmacher, and like Isaac Gifford. Those guys who had to be present for 4 quarters in that game were there. They were making plays. It allowed the guys like James Williams to have the type of afternoon that they had too, because he was a stud.
All right, off and running mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy here as well on a Monday, a Victory Monday, Reaction Monday, on a great weekend of sports, especially football. We got baseball. The American League is back today. That includes the Royals and the Yankees are playing at the same time as the Chiefs and the Saints. As the Yanks are up 1-0 in that series. Your Guardians are up 1-0, and Skubal pitches today for the Tigers.
Skubal Day.
Plus, we have the NLDS are tied at a game apiece. So we'll get into all of that as we roll till 10. Ben Audi from the BA Coaches Show to break down some of the important moments of Saturday's game. He'll join us coming up at 8. Evan Bland, Jacob Bigelow, all to join the party with all of you on Mornings with Sharp and Handley at 1620 The Zone. Carnage is a good word to use.
From Saturday?
Well, how about yesterday? If you are still alive in any survivor pool in the NFL,
oh yeah,
holy cow, good on you. Yeah. And what were you smoking when the season began? Because Seattle and San Francisco losing yesterday, that had to be near the top of people that are left in week 5.
Yep.
That you're like, you know what? I don't think San Francisco's going to lose to Arizona. Wrong. And I don't think the Giants will travel across the country and win in Seattle. Wrong.
Yep.
If you are still alive, I would like to meet you. I'd like to have a conversation with you. I'd like to pick your brain because there have, even like in the circa big survivor pool in Vegas, there has to be maybe triple figures left.
Yeah.
Not thousands, but triple. I don't know that we'd be into single or double.
If you would have told me that the two teams, and what is still a really early part of the NFL season, would only be, first of all, there only be 2 teams undefeated, and one of those teams would be the Minnesota Vikings. I think we could all believe that the Chiefs would be, but the Minnesota Vikings, holy hell.
Chiefs are a 5.5-point favorite tonight.
How you feeling about that?
I don't know.
You're at home.
I don't know, though. I'm a little bit nervous about tonight.
They'll win by a lot.
A little bit nervous tonight.
I don't know. That Saints offense, like in the first couple of weeks, I'm like, okay. Now all of a sudden they can't.
They haven't
really
been
do anything.
the same since the Cowboys.
And you're a defensive team, so
but they still
you should be
have.
fine.
They still have Kamara. They still have Olave and
some respect
what's the
on
other
Derek Carr.
wide receiver?
Quinn Early.
Shadard.
No.
Put some. Why no respect for who's slinging the football?
Shaheed.
The Dome Patrol shows up.
He
then
has,
you get
he has
nervous.
won at Arrowhead before.
Yeah, okay.
All right, that game's at 7:15 tonight. Good luck, Royal and Chief fans, trying to balance your screens or what you're going to watch or listen to.
Be a lot of phones out.
All right, let's start the mornings on the phones on the 42 Degree The Source hotline with Lance in L-Town. Good morning, Lance.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, my friend. You hear the news, though, about the Chiefs? Now that Rice is hurt, they've given him a new job. He's going to be driving the team bus from the hotel to the stadium. So good luck tonight. I'm glad when you guys are talking about the game, you're a lot like most of us Nebraska fans where we can just say winning is hard, and we won that game. And we've had a lot of games that played out like that where we were Rutgers. And so, one of the things that
Lance, Bulk Dog, I know you. You got a butt in there.
I'm not going to give you a butt because I'm just gonna go with it, and I'm going to say where we're going to give a lot of credit where he doesn't usually get credit is Matt Rule, because if you go and listen to the Rutgers post game show, and you listen to Shiano talk about the game, he called our interior defensive line one of the top 5 in the country. In his post game press conference, it's only about 7 minutes. It's worth going and listening to. He talks about in the second half, you're down 2 scores. As a coach, you start counting possessions. So Matt Rule taking the win to start the game made Rutgers only have the win for the second and third quarters. By the time they started counting possessions, they didn't really have a huge opportunity to give it to Kyle. And how they use him as criminal. Imagine having Amir Abdullah and not using him for like 9 or 10 minutes of game time between his last carry in the first quarter and his first carry in the second quarter. It just didn't make any sense.
Yep.
How they actually used him. And if you take out his goal line, he got 8 carries in 3 quarters after that first quarter. Like that was borderline criminal. But props to Matt Rule on taking the win, because I think that really threw Rutgers for a loop. And it's just a really good listen to hear him talk about how that game unfolded. Lots to work on. I think we know what Team Nebraska is now. And I think we've known for a few weeks now. They're amazing on defense. And if you want to see what good defense looks like, look at the national rankings on total defense for the Big Ten. I think we're 7th, but we're in the top 15. In scoring defense, we're like probably the highest in the Big Ten, though maybe the second highest. But it's a hard league. We're going to be elite on defense. We're meh on offense and downright terrible on special teams. And if the standard is the standard and feelings are involved, next year we're going to have a new special teams coordinator.
All right. Bulk Dog, good to hear from you, my man.
Yeah, buddy.
All right. Thank you.
This is why I asked you before we came on the air. For people who were at the game, were down on the field before, I had heard a few members of the media that were down there talking about how they felt maybe an hour or so before the game, the wind was kind of how it had been for much of the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe it was shortly before, 15 minutes or so before kickoff that it started to shift a bit.
A front went
through. Right. But I thought it was going to be later in the game. And then you kind of heard a little more about that in the second half, that it was moving a little bit. And we know in that stadium it can tend to swirl, that if Rutgers was as in tune to that when making said decisions on what they wanted to do, that was a very interesting part of those decisions of if it was indeed shifting and how much communication Rutgers had before ultimately making the decision there.
So in the warm-ups, it was
Midwest.
Coming out of the South, and then right before the game, it went out of the North. That's why when the balloons got released, they were in Nebraska City and not in South Sioux City.
Sorry, guys.
Nebraska won that game because they were better at the intangibles, and they were better at learning lessons from previous mistakes, whether it be what you did or didn't take away against Illinois, and Nebraska then took away an element that was the strength of Rutgers, and they made them one-dimensional, or going back to the Iowa game last year, where Kirk Ferentz in his own stadium outfoxed Matt Rule. And with the wind and the conditions of playing football in late November, and it came back to bite Nebraska because Iowa had the game-winning field goal at the end of the game with the wind at their back.
Mm-hmm.
So Nebraska was better at the intangibles. They were better at lessons learned, and they held on to that game. But the conditions we're going to get into Dylan. The conditions had an impact that I don't think if you were watching on TV you realized. But if you were in the stadium, I mean, there are times the wind was going sideways. It was just and you're baking. And then I heard I guess the Rutgers radio made a comment to the KRNU guys that the heat impacted Monangai. Like their sideline reporter said he was impacted by the heat. And I thought,
Thank Jim Harbaugh.
Does that explain in the second quarter when they have a winning down and 5 is not in the backfield?
Yeah.
Or 5 spends the majority of the second half pointing out the pass protection for his quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what are they doing? But hey, thank you to their decision not to pound him into a changed defensive front. I still think Tony White was in his bag. Tony White had a very, very good day, and they were good at the intangibles of studying film. Nebraska on that side of the ball was so prepared for everything that Rutgers was going to do. And then Rutgers lost one of their linemen before the game. He was ruled out for the entire season. Just Nebraska was better in the little details.
If you would throw out the parameters that existed in this game about, we asked this question, and I think you brought this up maybe 2 weeks ago about Dylan Raiola and his impact on this offense. And I said, if Dylan is not at least playing good football, this offense is going to, to the point that you could lose a game because that's how important he is. If you'd have told me Dylan was 13 of 27 with an interception, that was a bad one too. Not one of those 50-50s that someone's going to come down with, like a bad interception.
That play got, I'm not apologizing for the pick. I think that play got thrown off with the high snap. And then,
Yeah. I think he was trying to make up for the timing that was lost there. But
still bad pick.
It was. If you would tell me that 13 of 27 for 134, a pick, no touchdown passes, the offensive total output as well of what they did, then you factor in the special teams disasters of having 2 block punts and told me one of them will be returned inside the 5-yard line. How do you think this game is going to go? I would have said Rutgers wins it probably handily too.
Mm-hmm.
That is how good the defense was. That is how locked in the defense was.
Here is Andrew on the 42 Degree The Source by your mom's house. Hello, Andrew.
Hello. How are we doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I am. Every day is tremendous, man. Every day is.
You know what? Yeah. Every day that we put our feet on the ground and have a pulse, that is a good day.
We get out of bed upright.
That definitely
it's all good.
Yep. That's what my dad always says.
All right.
Hey, how huge is the addition of Sierra Wright?
Well, he only gave up one reception for 11 yards, so I would agree where you're going here.
Mm-hmm.
His elevation is huge.
Is his. So if Hill is not able to come back,
Mm-hmm.
Is he our best corner even with Hill? He's playing to me at an all conference level.
Yeah, he's a difference maker the last 3 weeks. There is no doubt. And I don't know what's up with Tommy Hill. That's an injury. Tommy Hill may not be 100% all year, which is good for Wright that he has played himself into picking up some of the slack.
Yeah.
But I'd rather have what is ahead for Nebraska. I'd rather have Hill and Wright at cornerback.
So is Wright as well as he playing, even if Hill comes back, your other starting corner?
Marcus Buford?
No, does he take Buford's spot as well as he's playing?
I don't think you take Buford off the field, but can you move him back to safety or play nickel with him?
Yeah, he has been a difference maker and a godsend.
Yeah.
I think. But
yeah, no, he has. Andrew, thanks for the phone call. And it's, he was okay at USC. He didn't get here till July. He was figuring out the landscape of who he was up against and how things were going to work. And his last 3 weeks, he makes an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And he was filthy Saturday. He's also one of those guys that I like because he's not afraid to stick his head in there.
Yep.
There's a lot of DBs that'll hang out in the back end, and they'll make a play against their wide receiver, but he comes up and he's on run coverage, and his coverage is really sticky as well. I wonder in the bye week if Sierra Wright and James Williams get a black shirt.
Yeah. Also, real quickly on Tommy Hill, though. You're right. I think people need to understand that he is not going to be 100%. I've dealt with plantar fasciitis. I know people who have dealt with plantar fasciitis from a football standpoint as well.
You mean NARPs when they have plantar fasciitis? It's not the same as an athlete?
It's really not, actually, no.
Not like Tim Duncan in 2006.
It was one of those things when I started running.
Still got 40 points in Game 7.
Random.
I got it probably the second year that I was running, and it sucks. With people who have ever had turf toe.
Shout out Dion.
The only real solution is by just being off your feet for an extended amount of time. We're not talking about like, a week and you'll be fine. No, like you got to be off your feet.
You'll derail your season.
In a walking boot for a very long time. So it does come down to a pain tolerance. And there are just going to be certain days that are worse. Mm-hmm. It made sense to me that he wasn't playing in this game because if they could give him another day and not being on his feet, especially in game reps, and then being able to have a bye week where he could really focus in on giving that thing more relief, it at least gives you a chance to come back and play with less pain in that foot. It's never going to just completely go away. That's something that he'll probably be dealing with well into November. But from the standpoint of keeping him out, I would have been surprised if he played, knowing that you have a bye week and you have more time to get, because it is essentially, people always talk about turf toe. It never really goes away unless you can literally be off your feet for 2 weeks without doing anything. Well, if you're going to try to give it a go, and we know he was practicing this week, so obviously he's been on his feet. Obviously they're limiting him on what he can do, but that is something, to your point, 100%. He's not going to be at that level. He's not going to be at 100% the entire year, but that doesn't mean he can't be in there and be effective and be dealing with less pain than he currently is right now.
Yeah,
it's a tricky one.
Curious on how they navigate this, because what is the Bly Hill situation?
Yeah.
When does he get the go-ahead, and what is he going to be like? Because essentially we've not seen him play at Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
But thank God for Sierra Wright. He is a dude.
Because didn't Matt Rule say, I think it was 2 weeks ago, Bly Hill was brought up and they said, is it the plan now to redshirt him? And he said, no, their plan was still to get him ready to go. But I do wonder with Sierra Wright and his emergence, if you are thinking differently of that plan on how you bring Bly Hill along too.
Well, you're going to face some teams that are going to throw the football.
Yep.
Rourke threw for 380, 3 scores against Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Northwestern's going to, Indiana's going to stretch you. They're going to go up and down the field on you. So you're going to have to be pretty good on the back end. And then, Jeremiah Smith the following week against Ohio State.
Yeah.
They have some interesting, like when you reach the first bye on personnel, and then I think this is something that maybe we'll discuss with Evan Bland coming up at 8:30 as part of the lineup brought to you by the Rooferys at John Higgins Weather Guard. What do they do with Riley Van Poppel? Riley Van Poppel played pretty well against Rutgers. That's game 3. They got one more.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really play any big people games until Wisconsin, but more Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah. The big people games.
I get what you're saying.
I like big
the
people
big
games.
people games are down to one more.
Yeah.
Riley Van Poppel is in a big people game.
Mm-hmm.
So do you now hold him off until and cross your fingers that there's no injuries? But I don't know, man. He can be an asset for you to spell Ty and Nash or to put him out there with a combo of either one of those. All right, Jimmy's got an update coming up next. Ben Oddie at 8 on our Monday chat with the BA Coaches Show. Jacob Bigelow stops by as well. We'll sneak in some basketball as Jacob is worn out. Told me on Saturday he's worn out.
Oh,
I'm gonna sleep all week.
Rosemont wasn't good.
I was in 3 states in 3 days. Which tells you
some tips.
Jacob will never be an over-the-road truck driver.
No.
He's coming up at 9.
He won't keep our highways safe.
It's a Monday. It's a Victory Monday. Ahead of a good day of sports again after a great weekend of football. Update with Jimmy coming up next on 1620 The Zone.
Some mornings the coffee just hits better than others. Today is one of them. That's how you know it's going to be a really good day. It was a really good day at Devaney yesterday for Nebraska volleyball as the second-ranked Huskers sweep Iowa 25-17, 25-11, 25-13. It was a great day for Rebecca Alec and Layla Blackwell, who combined for 18 of the Huskers' 44 kills. Nebraska hit 404 and held Iowa to 155. They next host 10th-ranked Purdue on Friday. Not to be forgotten, Norris Sis had 16 kills as number 6 Creighton. Yeah, they're still really good. They swept Butler Friday night to win a 6th straight match and 4th straight in the Big East. They're now 13-2, 4-0 in the league. They never trailed after tying the first set 1-1. They hit 389 for the match. They travel to Villanova next Friday before taking on St. John's in New York on Saturday. Rick Pitino. All right. Omaha hockey falls, number 10, Wisconsin. 3-2 Saturday night at Baxter Arena. Fun was had by all. The PA announcer brought it. He was in mid-season form. Durango was ready for March already. Yeah. Anyway, prior to the game, the ice was dedicated to Mike Kemp, as we talked about last week. Very cool stuff. How'd that go, Nick?
It was awesome. It was a great ceremony. His friends and family were there.
Hold on one second. Coach Kemp is a great guy. I can see why you're getting choked up. Thank you. Thank you.
He and actually, speaking of which, you could tell it was very emotional. I had a
That's
cool
awesome.
video for him as well.
Man,
he
good
addressed
dude.
the crowd. It was really, really cool. Special commemorative pucks that they had for the game as well. So I think everything that Coach Kemp would have wanted for that. Yep, there you go, right there on the TV. Everything that Coach Kemp would have wanted, and as you know, Gary, one of the more humble guys that we've had a chance to interact with, but he's also one of the best men. It was cool to see him get caught up in the moment, but to have his wife and his daughters there, and then a lot of alum and a lot of the donors that have been there with him since '97. Very, very cool.
And a good crowd, you said.
Yeah, it was. I got the students. Hats off.
They're ready.
It was already half full during warm-ups.
So I was trying to time coming back from Lincoln because I live across the street from Baxter Arena. I'm like, if I get through traffic before it ends, I'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I was hitting it as the game had been over for like 5-10 minutes, but
Okay.
it looked like great crowd.
Yep. They got to see a little overtime.
That's awesome. That's a good start to the season at Baxter.
That's a good Wisconsin team.
My
too.
drumming friends, were they in mid-season form?
Yeah.
All
No
right.
band, obviously
band.
for an exhibition, but yes, the buckets were there.
What? No band?
Yeah, the band wasn't there.
Why wasn't the band there?
Were they on the field?
Exhibition.
Wait,
man.
another game.
You no? Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. I don't think they've ever been there for an exhibition.
But it's Wisconsin.
And then usually when they
I
have a
don't
game
know.
over like the winter break, sometimes they'll have like a very small like skeleton crew type band, but usually during the winter break they're not there either.
Damn. Makes me sad.
If I say anything, I'm going to get another invite to go to lunch,
speaking of
so-
which,
I didn't get in on this whole lunch thing.
Our good friend who reached out to you said, "Now I make sure I'm getting Gary straightened out," and I just started laughing. So yes, you were brought up.
good night at Baxter. That's
cool. It was
good
very
for
cool.
everybody involved. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people going to Vegas this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Where they open up the season.
Yep.
The baseball was good over the weekend. The Phillies even up their series with the Mets thanks to Nick Castellanos, who didn't hit a home run, but he came through with a walk-off single to win 7-6. The Padres get really pissed after fans at Dodger Stadium throw stuff at them. They win 10-2. They head back to San Diego for Game 3, tied at 1-1. I'd love to be there. Guardians look to go up 2-0 against Detroit today. Nick and Schaefer will do their part to try and aid that. Then tonight, Royals-Yankees Game 2, split off against Ron Guidry. Monday Night Football tonight, the Hank Stram Bowl, Saints in Kansas City. You know, Chiefs tight end Travis Swift had a birthday the other day. Apparently, there's controversy about that. They're just making up
hold
stuff.
on. Who?
Travis Swift. Apparently, his better half wasn't at his birthday, and so now they're trying to tie this in. He's going to go for 170 and 2 touchdowns tonight. Watch, because he's tired of people talking about
I
it.
think she's at the game tonight.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she'll be.
Yeah.
there.
See, they're just
Prime time Monday
She's
night.
about
Kansas
to put
City.
out some more new music.
Isn't she putting up a residence in Kansas City as well?
Yeah. It's called Leawood. It was a week of upheaval in the Associated Press college football poll. Texas returning to number 1 on Sunday. Oh, joy. 1 week after Vanderbilt's monumental upset of Alabama, the Commodores win. Brickhouse has more than 3 touchdown underdogs caused the Fighting Elephants to drop from number 1 to number 7. The last top-ranked team to fall so far was Ohio State, which fell to number 11 in 2010 after an October loss to Wisconsin. I remember that. Texas, which actually I don't. Texas would edge an open 8 received 52 of the 61 first-place votes, became the first team in 2 years to bounce in and out of the top spot in the span of 3 polls. I'm sure they'll print T-shirts for that. The Longhorns also were just the third team since 2008 to be voted number 1 after not playing the day before. It's great work if you can get it. Ohio State beat Iowa for its 4th straight easy win, received 9 first-place votes, moved up to number 2. Oregon and Penn State and their fantastic offensive coordinator each rose 3 spots, with the Ducks up to number 3. Ooh, Ducks and Buckeyes this weekend. And the Nittany Lions' 4th, Georgia, remains number 5, still can't drive to save their lives. 6 of the 18 AP Top 25 teams that played lost to unranked opponents, the highest mark since 6 of 16 lost the first week of October 2020, but we don't talk about that time. The Crimson Tide were among the 4 teams, the top 11 to lose to unranked opponents, the first time that's happened since October of 2016. And finally, because we like to end on a positive on what's going to be a gorgeous day here in Omaha, 70 and sunny, Texas A&M recorded its biggest win over a top 10 team in program history Saturday with a 41-10 ass-kicking of Missouri, and appreciated the assist by Tigers quarterback Brady Cook. Before heading to Texas, he was asked about how Missouri prepared to play in front of the crowd at Kyle Field. The noise at practice is actually louder, he said. I didn't know they got 100,000 at practice, attributing it to speakers used to simulate the playing environment. There is no simulation of the often imitated, never duplicated fight in Texas Aggie band. Aggies coach Mike Elko didn't seem to mind the comments, making their way the just over 97,000 fans in attendance in Aggie land, saying the 12th man certainly heard some of the statements made about how easy it was to play at Kyle Field, and that was good. The Rhodes Scholar Cook finished 13 of 31 for 186 yards with a touchdown and was pressured on 13 of 37 dropbacks. Say it all with me together. Gigamags. Long live R.C. Slocum.
The Paper Tigers, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were asking about that.
Positive Monday.
Hey, this is a good harken back to the 80s sports.
I like that harken back.
With the Yankees and the Royals meeting in a playoff series, and you had the Cowboys and the Steelers last night.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Dick Enberg smiles somewhere.
Yeah.
That's right.
Also, it's funny to me because I follow quite a few people that are in the Minnesota media that went over to London. Just the observations when us common folk go over to England about what it's like to drive on the other side of the road. But don't you think they should do that one day a year around here?
Yeah, I'd love it. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Experience what it's like. You know, Dodge is such a mess. You don't know what lane you're in. Thankfully, they kind of fixed Farnham. You know, you got to look up and you got to see if there's green or there's red and what lane you can be in. One day a year in this country, we get to drive on the other side of the road to experience what our friends over in England.
God, I love that idea.
See how to drive terribly the other way.
So would car fix them up places and insurance companies.
I know a lot of people who have a tough time with the one way. That would also probably be very, very difficult. Just don't do that during state tournament weekends.
Yeah. Also,
that's a really high county number.
Also, I noticed an observation from a young chap this morning that is on his way back to the Twin Cities.
Mm-hmm.
He took a picture. Did you know that in England, the McDonald's have a double Filet-O-Fish?
Whoa.
A double Filet-O-Fish.
Why is that necessary?
What do you mean, why is it necessary?
Just because it's a fish and chips type place?
Double Filet-O-Fish.
Oh.
Not a singular, a double.
With large fries?
You don't stop at first base. You slide into second for a double.
One's bad enough. Why do you need to have 2?
I don't know.
I do love me a McFish.
I don't even think this is a bad food take.
A Filet-O-Fish.
Filet-O-Fish is not good.
When you are celebrating Lent?
I'll tell you where you should go then. You go to Popeyes, get their Cajun fish sandwich. That's even better.
Why do I have to choose? That's the problem with this country. Why do I have to choose?
You don't have
That's
to.
a good point.
I'm just telling you, the Filet-O-Fish,
it's
very basic, man.
You don't have to choose.
No, fat asses should eat all.
Everybody love everybody.
Well, yeah. I'm just trying to give you if you want to step up, if you think a Filet-O-Fish is good, then I think you're really going to like what Popeyes has to offer.
I'm just going to have to go find out for myself. Darn.
Yeah, that's fine. I just think Filet-O-Fish is very basic. What do they say? It's very mid.
You don't like...
We're in the Midwest.
You don't like a square...
No.
Filet-O-Fish, I'm not even going to call it a patty, and then just a piece of cheese thrown on with tartar sauce?
No.
And just the right amount, too, not too much.
I mean...
I think the last few times
I know what I'm having for lunch
a very,
today.
long time ago. They were always... they never traveled well.
You hate the Shamrock Shake as well?
Actually, Shamrock Shake's pretty good.
See, I don't like the Shamrock
Shake.
But I respect why people
I know people do think it's overrated. I get it. It's mint and ice cream, but it's still pretty good.
They have the double. The double in England. England is so much better than we are in soccer.
Yeah.
Do they? Well, that's true. Do they have? I'll agree with you there. So, do they reduce what they would normally have?
The caloric intake? Hell no.
No, obviously not.
Feel them arteries
But do they only have?
I know what I'm signing up
You know
for.
what I'd put up next to a McDonald's that was selling a double Filet-O-Fish in England? An Ozempic factory.
On a Big Mac, do they add an extra bun so you have 4 buns?
No, add
No.
more meat.
No. They just got the 2, whatever those things are. They're not patties.
No.
And then they got double cheese, double tartar sauce.
I don't think it's fish either. I have Filet-O-Fish.
You don't think it's caught locally?
Like we get ours from Cunningham?
You don't think the McDonald's that is right next to the Salt Creek in Lincoln doesn't go local? They're like,
Platte River?
Hey, Ed.
Wouldn't that be great?
Ed, we're a little behind on our Filet-O-Fish. Can you go out back? Got it. No problem.
You start seeing job postings for actual
I gotta go
kids
get
that are fishermen.
I lost my bobber the other day, but let me get the bobber back, and I'll be able to put a line in the water in Salt Creek.
You got to double the efforts when you get into Lenten season too. So yeah,
These came from Mahoney.
Oh God, that'd be hilarious. Like because you have a lot of family.
So you mean
McDonald's?
the fish we consume in our seafood restaurants in the city are not caught locally?
No, in fact, I don't know where they're caught, and I don't even know if I'd want to know.
So when
sometimes you're just at the mercy on a Friday that you have to have some fish.
When you go to Fleming's and you go, man, carp sounds really good today. I wonder if it was caught out of the Missouri. That's not the case.
And I don't think anybody's ever requested that too. Do you have the Missouri mudfish? I would really like some of that.
Ooh, that a drink?
I'd like some carp.
Do you have?
We don't have any carp today, but we do have salmon that was caught down around the bend in Brownville.
Actually, if you're into fish, you might like the gator gar that we got out at Wagner Lake in Columbus, Nebraska. It's very good. Tough to eat, but very good.
All right, a couple of emails.
Thanks for the lunch idea.
Go get yourself some gator gar.
Oh, no.
Garfish.
I got the McFish today.
Oh,
with fries.
Adam
You can
writes
do better.
into the Equitable Bank inbox where they take banking personally. Good morning, Doug. You can always hit us up, Gary at 1620thezone.com or Handley at 1620thezone.com. Adam writes in, good morning. Good morning, Adam. Just curious, did you notice Schiano would get a radio walkie-talkie out when Nebraska would punt? Your thoughts on that? I did not notice that from being in person, and I have not gone back and watched the game, except for Robert Smith saying the balloons were scary.
Yeah, that's what we took from that.
Okay, so I'm guessing on TV, this is where Adam caught this.
Yes, and there was
So this is real?
Yeah, there's a device that I guess I would say, kind of a walkie-talkie type of device. I only noticed it once, and to be perfectly honest, I don't even remember if it was just on a punt. I thought I remember it actually in a defensive. Well, yeah, it would have been when Nebraska had the football is when I noticed it.
So I do think, because I noticed this in the Washington game, he is the guy that signals in the defensive plays.
Yes.
So he's got the walkie with the defensive player.
Yeah. So I'm
Okay.
assuming he's on
All right.
with the, yeah.
Well, if Schiano was on the radio walkie,
Turn a punt. What was he saying? What was the secret sauce?
Run to the spot! Run to the spot! This is what he should have said. What was Rutgers doing on Buscini's last punt that ended up
the 69-yarder?
It was a nice punt, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
You had to go there.
I did.
Them's the rules.
It would have been nice at 68.
Why was Rutgers not bringing the mob?
I don't know. That worked all game.
Well, it did early, and then they adjusted. I actually like how they do their punt coverage or the going after them.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't change much, but it's intriguing with two guys over the center, and then they'll drop them back, and so they have two blockers for the punt return. I really like that, but they also, well, in the two punts that were blocked, they had gunners. They were not covering Nebraska's gunners.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think there was one time where the punt got blocked where I thought Nebraska could have run the fake punt earlier in the game because the gunner was unblocked and he was on the outside. But they did it twice. They did actually three times. Twice they got home. But I thought at the end, why would you not bring the entire house on Buscini? And he noticed it that there was nobody coming in the A-gap. Instead of the one-step punt, he was able to take his time, and he had three steps, and you see where the ball went to, 69 yards, and where it was down. I thought that was a mistake on their part. But the other two, I mean, they saw something on film in Nebraska, which
Iowa did too.
Nebraska's had 5 punts blocked this year. How in the God do you have 5 punts blocked?
And they're 5-1.
Do you guys understand how
it's hard to get one?
That's hard to do.
It is. It really is.
To have
You might
5
have one
punts
all year.
blocked and 2 kicks and 2 punts in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do, but that's Nebraska. Yet they are, as you mentioned, Nick, they're 5-1. But I don't know what they were doing there at the end. I also think this, because Buschini by far MVP. Monster day. 5 punts over 50 yards, 2 50-plus punts, 2 inside of the 20. Man that's got my back. First of all, I thought he was dead.
I did too.
When he got hit on the first punt there in the first quarter. First quarter.
Yes, it was. Yeah. First. Yeah.
It's going to be like Madden where they get the ambulance. And
he was
over.
down. I thought, oh boy.
Yeah, it didn't look good.
I don't think, and he's a grinder, man. He is such an extension of the defense. When Buschini is on, he is a huge asset to that defense. I don't think the way Rutgers blocks kicks in the history of Schiano and what they do, they were just praying that Buschini was going to be fine, and they didn't have to go to Camden Cook, who, by the way, came in and held on one of the PATs, because having Buschini stay in the game, being smart enough to recognize some coverages and what Rutgers was going to do, especially on the last punt that he could go from 1 step to 3 steps, I think was an asset. So they caught a break there that he was able to continue to punt.
Yeah.
But man, I thought they should have brought the house when Nebraska was punting from the end zone, and I thought they should have brought the house at the end, and they didn't, and Nebraska essentially made them pay.
Yeah, there was, so from the TV angle on that final punt, you could tell there was, and this is the problem. So watching it from the press box or at the game, when you can see how close they actually get as opposed to the TV angle where it looked like the two outside, like the outside pressure, especially the bottom of the screen, looked like it was converging a little bit closer than it probably was, because he was able, just like a quarterback, able to step up into that pocket that's provided, which he didn't have earlier in the game. I that was your biggest weapon if you were Rutgers. That I don't know why you wouldn't do that, because even at the very least, if he gets the punt off, I'm going to go ahead and guess that it's not going to go almost 70 yards. You're in the exact same spot because you had no return whatsoever anyway. That, okay, you don't get home. Worst case scenario is you still get the football, and you get it in a position with time on the clock that you can still make something out of that, and you can still try to tie the game up. It was, from the standpoint of it being the biggest weapon that I still think existed late in that game for Rutgers to not go that way, because were you really going to set up a return in that? To me, that you were essentially taking what was a big advantage away in a probably a crucial moment. And again, going back to coaching decisions in this game.
Hey, the little things Nebraska was better at. Schiano's supposed to be really good at the little things. I don't think he took into account the intangibles in that game, in the in-game stuff. Nebraska won a game with some of their in-game decisions. On whether it be that with a veteran punter that could recognize something, or especially what they did on defense. Also, second straight week, shout out when you do have a block kick. Buschini saved a touchdown in West Lafayette. Nate Borkature, if you go back and look at the punt that was blocked all the way down to the 2, Nate Borkature is busting his ass. He is on a full dead sprint to save a touchdown. If Borkature does not make that play, that guy is in the end zone. It's a whole different ball game, and you're like, here we go. And you see what the ensuing thing is. Nebraska held at the 2-yard line. Borkature deserves, he deserves an extra trip through the buffet line at the training table today because of what he did to save a touchdown on that first block punt.
He gets an extra trip. He gets another plate. I'm glad you brought that up, because
block punt.
I think everybody who thought when that block punt happened, and even though that they didn't score, you're thinking, oh, geez, here we go again. Then you see what ends up happening. Then you immediately probably go back and say, who made that stop? Who made that stop? Because I don't even know how many people realize that it was Nate Borkature who kept him from scoring until after Nebraska turns them away. And you're thinking, man, that was huge. So this was brought up on a Severe Show yesterday that I thought was an interesting observation from one of the callers on also bringing up Borkature in that setting, and said, is that more of a, not just, okay, guy making a play just because that's what he knows, but is that a culture thing? Is when you have a guy that is busting like that, when you see the majority of college football players, hell, NFL football players that are in a similar situation that just concede the touchdown as opposed to making that play, knowing even though I got him out of bounds, there's still a strong likelihood that they're in position to at least get points out of this. But you never know, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to make this play because we're keeping it out of the end zone. Defense got a shot, and I'm giving this team a shot. Is that a culture thing? Which I thought was a good question.
Yeah, well, you go back to the week before about the comment about Jamal Banks being on a kickoff return.
Yeah.
Or on a kickoff coverage.
Kickoff coverage. And we saw that in the chasing three and how everybody lit up on that as well when he brings that up. So how that looms large on that too, just having that type of effort right there. Even on Dylan's interception, the fact that Dylan didn't have to make that tackle, I was very, very happy about, because at one point I thought, oh God, he's the only person between.
What if he knocks out Banks and Banks is out for the year due to a knee injury because
he's Patrick Mahomes?
Yes.
Glad that didn't happen.
Gary, stay right there. We'll get into Dylan's day at the office, which the bye week comes at a great time for the freshman quarterback, who for the first time this year looked like a freshman. Ben Otte joins us at the top of the hour from the BA Coaches Show on Mornings with Sharp and Handley at 1620 The Zone.
It is the greatest time of the year again, and kickoff is here. Football officially back, and we are into the month of October. I'm excited about my stuff tonight. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got on the game last year by making picks on Underdog Fantasy. You can do it very easily. Making picks is straightforward. Signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with promo code ZONE. Got some good stuff tonight with the Chiefs and Saints, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code ZONE to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 19 plus in Nebraska, you know where we live, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
Hey, it's week 5 of the $25,000 four-quarter pick'em. So if you are subscribed to 1620 the email, you can make your picks today starting at 10 a.m. And why that's important is because if there is a tie, guess what? The ones who get their picks in the fastest, meaning you 1620 the emailers, you would get the tiebreaker if you get your picks in fast. You can still do that by going to 1620thezone.com/1620 the email to sign up while you still have a chance. Remember, tie comes down to who entered their picks first. Get signed up right now at 1620thezone.com/1620 the email.
And a chance to win $2,500 early access. Do it! Plus, you get VIP access. We got bottle service in the bye week behind the velvet ropes.
Ciroc.
I don't know what else we'll provide. This will be weekend to crash weddings.
Yeah,
a lot of weddings going on. A lot of trips to the pumpkin patch. A lot of apple cider donuts will be eaten.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of wine will be drank.
Another warm
A lot of kids
weekend.
will be lost at pumpkin patches and mazes.
Whoa. By the way,
law of averages.
Very happy to hear that the Vallis property that had the brush fire yesterday, it did not impact the actual pumpkin patch itself. But man, if people were driving and saw that smoke, that thing looked outrageous
Saw the
for
pictures.
a moment.
That'd be like driving on 84.
Yeah, like, what the hell's going on
I
here?
feel like I just did a PJ Fleck from Saturday Night. Before we get to Gary here, I want to point something out. I like to present you guys with the facts and let you digest them.
Okay.
Because you're going to have 2 weeks to talk yourself in or out of what Indiana is. First of all, they're winners. They're 6-0. They hired a really good football coach.
They're bowl eligible.
Yeah, they are. They're the first in the country to become bowl eligible. People forget that. They thought it would be Alabama, but instead it's Indiana. So that makes perfect sense. But Indiana, their 3 opponents in the Big Ten are 0-7. Nebraska's 3 opponents are 2-4. Just you got 2 weeks to talk yourself in or out of how good Indiana is. But I like my man Tony White with 2 weeks to get ready for that Indiana offense.
Good defense travels.
So just do what you will with that stat. Talk amongst your friends. Indiana's 3 wins. They can only play the schedule that is in front of them, but their 3 opponents are 0-7, and their toughest games are ahead of them, including, people say, the end of the month, not in 2 weeks. But that's okay.
Yeah.
This is perfect for Nebraska. The Nebraska will be a slight underdog. Will be on the road. People won't be talking about them as much. Might be a great scenario for Nebraska, and the first time that Indiana football gets attention. It's good. It's good for the sport.
Yes, it is.
This weekend was great for the sport. Places that normally are hotbeds of college football got to experience what we get to experience around here. Great for the sport. Be great for Indiana, but I think it's a good situation for Nebraska off a bye week. All right, here is Gary back to the phones on a Monday morning of Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Good morning, G-Man.
Good morning, Mr. Sharp. First off, hats off to Buschini and his punts when he was able to punt. Reason for calling in.
Wait a minute.
Unfortunately, I didn't
Wait a minute. That seemed like there was this is leading to something.
Yes, it is. Because
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to call into unsportsmanlike conduct yesterday because I was away from my house.
Well, they weren't on the.
If you were able to call into USC yesterday, that'd be a hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, all right, guys, you go to a lot of football games. When is the first time you've ever seen 2 guys protecting a punter that were on only one side of on his left side and not one on his right side? How many times have you always seen where there's at least 2 guys, one sitting sideways?
Yeah.
When the ball snaps,
then it goes.
Then it's a 3-man block team for that punter. There was one occasion where we only had 2 blockers back there, and they were both on his, I believe, right side. So the block came. I'm sorry. Foley has got some issues, and if it's a bye week, I don't know. I just like to see him go and get somebody else in there that might be able. That to me, that was one of the biggest blunders. I couldn't believe it was happening on the field. Was you put 2 blockers on the same side of the kicker instead of having another gentleman over on his other side? Did you notice that yesterday? Did you see that play?
On the first one you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the first one, but I was just shocked when I saw it. And then they replayed it, and I thought, yep, I was right. There was only 2 blockers on his. It would be his right side.
Well, there was the one in the first quarter where
I don't know which one it was.
Well, okay, so the first punt, they had the Nebraska's gunner closest to the Rutgers sideline was uncovered.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I thought they might change the call on what they were going to do for their blocking schemes, and they never did. The coverage schemes on the special teams are an absolute friggin' nightmare, and they haven't changed. They're the exact same thing as last year.
Yep. And whose fault's that? It's the coach's fault. So I'm not happy with Foley. I wish that he would make a change there, but what do I know? But I was standing up in the chair so angry because I couldn't believe for the first time we didn't have that happen. And I'm thinking, okay, where's the third man back there? So again, guys, great show.
Thank you,
Always
Gary.
love you
Thanks,
know
Gary.
that.
I appreciate it.
I would also say, going back to previous games that Buschini's successfully got a punt off, it's still a little bit more hairy. Even though they don't make the actual deflection or there's any contact. He's been under the gun pretty much the entire year. So this was something that was brought up last week a lot on this show, and I think other shows as well, of the special teams element of Rutgers and being able to, if you go back to the Logan Smothers start for Nebraska versus Iowa, where that game changed, was the punt block that was in the third quarter of that game. And all of a sudden, Nebraska was completely lost. But what did Iowa say? They were able to identify something in Nebraska's punt game that had to do with their protection that they could explain that they could go after.
There's a lot of dumb football that's being handled on special teams. So I listened to Big Red Overreaction that calls into Connor is everybody wants Ed's head. All right. And Ed's a very nice guy. Okay. Stop with that. Hey, he's a nice guy. There's a lot of nice guys that, they just don't work out. But what would change? Like right this year? I
don't know.
In the offseason, you can do a deeper dive. Now, this is a big week for Nebraska because I think there's a lot of self-scouting that needs to go on, which will go on because it's a staff that gets it. But the better question about special teams is, what can be fixed in the last 6 games? What can be fixed? Is it because I think Rule would be more prone to do something if it was poor in practice and poor in the game. There's something that during practice, it must be going right, and then they get in game, and it's like PJ Fleck hollering at the official. That's what it looks and sounds like, probably, out on the field.
Most likely, yes.
But it's just, my issue is, it's just not smart IQ on special teams. It's not like recognizing things, or why is the gunner allowing himself to be blocked completely out of the play, or why is he running away from the player?
Yeah.
Why don't you look up in the air? That's the stuff. So can that be fixed in the next 6 weeks?
I think there's elements to alignment that, could be. And so
are the wrong people on the field in special teams.
And that's
not the specialists.
Right.
But are the wrong other 10 or other 9 the wrong people out there?
That, to me, is the better question. Of you're now at that point, because remember when they were talking about just this last week about just the overall kicking function of snap to hold to kick, and how that always looks good in practice. For whatever reason, it's not jiving in games. That can be a 1 or 2 game anomaly where it doesn't make sense. You want to continue to show confidence in everybody involved with their job. But at some point when it becomes a liability, you got to start asking that exact question. Do we have the right people in to execute this in a game setting, in a game stage, the game actual live reps of this? And obviously you're not going to know that until you get some new guys out there in a game. But I feel we're at that point right now, because despite what was a phenomenal effort defensively, Nebraska got a little lucky as well. Okay, we talked about the Ben Black dropping that touchdown pass there. All right, Nate Borkacher making a very good play to keep somebody out of the end zone on a block punt. That, if it doesn't go Nebraska's way, you are looking at special teams first and foremost and saying you can't win games that way. So now you're at the point where you're on the verge of being bowl eligible. You're on the verge of being a better team in year 2, but you have a phase that is...
Looks like PJ Fleck's face the other day.
It does. It does.
I feel like Steve Carell from Bruce Almighty.
Yeah, yes.
I'm watching this video over and over. I don't mean to catch up, but
It is great.
You're
trying to figure out what he's saying, aren't you?
Seen it for the first time. I'm going to go with Nick said.
See, it could be the row you boat ski go gophers. If anybody doesn't know what we saw, I just retweeted that out there too. I hope you saw it Saturday night.
I'm
It's
telling
really,
you,
really
I'm
good.
with you, Nick. This is. I don't think there's any way he's saying something else. Yeah.
The bye week this week though for that phase, I think is the most important thing right now because I have a feeling that every coach, Matt Rule, Ed Foley, maybe Ed is kind of it's when they bring in the demolition crew. They're like, all right, guys, step aside here. We're coming in. We're going to go do the work. I don't know the expertise level outside of what they currently do, other than Matt Rule, as far as guys like Tony White, guys like Rob Dvorak, guys like EJ Barthel, all of the different position coaches, even Raiola, of what can we bring to special teams? Because we at least all need to make a joint effort of maybe one of the biggest things that you asked, the biggest question, do we, first and foremost, do we have the right guys in the field that can actually execute what we need them to? And is our system, is our alignment, all of those things we all have to look at this, not just Ed Foley and the guys that he has and Brett Maher and the guys that he's working with too. The entire coaching staff, unfortunately, is going to have to take time out of what they do from a position standpoint and look at this.
Think about this question. This is one we'll pose to our guests, our three guests, esteemed guests, Ben Audie, Evan Bland, and Jacob Bigelow. Not all created equal.
No.
If you were playing 3-on-3, probably not winning a gold. No offense to them. They're just not basketball players. Only in Jacob's mind.
Good coach.
I'm going to throw this out there. Think about it through the break. We can get back to it because people really want us to discuss Raiola, so we're going to get to Dylan. Would you, in the Big Ten Conference, not anywhere else, but in the Big Ten Conference, Nick rattled off some stats about defenses in the Big Ten and that they are in the top 15 and like half the league is in the top 15. Now, Nebraska still is the only team in the country that hasn't given up a rushing touchdown.
Right.
They're only giving up 11.3 points per game. They're halfway through the season. They're halfway to their sacks and takeaways. But in the Big Ten Conference, would you rather have an elite special teams group or an elite defense? You can't have both. It'd be nice to have both. You can only have one. Would you rather have the elite special teams or the elite defense to win in the Big Ten? Ben Audie from the BA Coaches Show joins us at the top of the hour. You can chime in on the question, 402-951-1620. Always into the Equitable Bank inbox. Gary at 1620thezone.com. Handley at 1620thezone.com. Or on the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed. I just it's on a loop on my computer. At Gary Sharp 1620.
Nick Handley 1620. It's the fact that he gets into his face and then kind of has like that chicken clucking face, like, remember, we're in the Big Ten. That had to hurt his head. USC's an outsider. Scheme up.
It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley at 1620 The Zone. Oh, we got a lot of defensive people in our audience. 4 weeks from today, the college basketball season begins. Plan accordingly. 4 weeks from today. It's hard to believe that around here we are 6 games into the season, entering the first bye week.
Yeah, a lot of people already had their bye week, their first one.
The season is just... I like how Nebraska's schedule sets up. If they handle it appropriately, go 6, have a bye. Go 3, have a bye. Finish with 3. I wonder if you also pressed Lincoln Riley with his question. That Lincoln Riley, a little bit of a loser way to go at it, said that we are close. We are 2 plays away from being 5-0. But USC, as favorites on the road in the Big Ten, they have lost twice at Michigan, and then they lost at Minnesota. And I don't know if it's more of adjusting to the Big Ten for USC, or Lincoln Riley is about to be in a pressure cooker. Now they're outside of the top 25, and he's going to get exposed. Because I just want to point something out for you. I've got this on my computer. I need to tweet this out and get rid of it, because I just, every time I look up, I see it's like going...
Guys sound like Raftery to an extent.
Maybe that's what he's doing.
Why so sassy, Lincoln, after the game? Didn't want to have any discussion about the touchdown that was allowed for Minnesota that put them ahead.
Yep.
I just want to give you something here. What do Sam Pittman, Hugh Freeze, Lincoln Riley, Billy Napier, and Sonny Dykes have in common?
I don't know.
Jimmy? Sam Pittman, Hugh Freeze, Lincoln Riley, Billy Napier, Sonny Dykes.
Damn, even I don't know this. I'm going to feel dumb here in a minute. Tell me.
All of them in their last 12 games, 5-7.
Oh, of course. That's not good, but Sam had a good night on Saturday.
Well, and it's amazing that you can flip the narrative. I'm not saying you're doing this, because I think it's appropriate to do this, that when USC lost to Michigan, even though that they were a favorite, that was a good game. In fact, I think USC came away from that having lost that game, but still gaining some respect about, damn, that was just a good football game. Now, mind you, they didn't make Michigan's quarterback have to throw the football, but it was a good football game. Miller Moss looked good in it, at least for the first half. And it was one of those fun college football games that, yeah, obviously you're upset if you're a USC guy or fan that you lost that game, but you can take a lot of positives away from that and go into a place like that in Michigan and, almost coming up with a pretty big victory right there. It's the Minnesota game, where now all of a sudden you look at, okay, what happened in Michigan? Maybe it wasn't so great, because they go back on the road in a place that I wouldn't consider Minnesota and Huntington Bank Stadium to be one of the more intimidating environments. It's a good college football environment, don't get me wrong, but it's not one of those things that USC goes in, you're just going to be overwhelmed with that. And this Minnesota team, which is kind of interesting that they lost to Michigan, is kind of a Michigan light. And so these are the types of teams that, unfortunately for USC, no matter how improved your defense is from a year ago, you're going to face at least 3 to 4 teams a year in the conference that has that type of identity. So until you adjust to that, you're going to look at these types of games being extremely close. And then when it comes to nut cutting time, are you making the necessary plays on your end offensively? And USC did not do that.
Penn State at USC this weekend. The winner gets to stay in Los Angeles and coach the Troy. All right. So I posed this going into the break.
No, because then there's a Matt Rule thing on there. We don't know. No. Come on. Stop that, Gary. Just stop. Can't have that happen. Then people are going to be like, oh, Matt Rule to Penn State.
I don't know. Matt Rule, by the way, had a chip on his shoulder. He did not like some of the public stuff after the Illinois game.
On Chase, wait, was this on Chasing 3?
No, this is real life, my friend.
He did
but that is real
life.
Pissy. That's a reality show.
Oh yeah, he's a little agitated. He's got.
And they played like it.
Got a little edge to him. I can't wait for someone to ask about Mazuka today.
Oh yeah, now that one last week's like, you guys make a big deal of it, but he's
you're not going there. Unless he brings it up today, I don't think media will go there anymore on Mazuka, who is the best backup offensive guard in the Big Ten. So I pose the question, elite, would you, okay, remember, Nebraska plays 4 of their last 6 on the road, so you need stuff on the road that's portable.
Yep.
Okay, regardless of weather condition, regardless of opponent, portable, that can swing games for you. Would you rather have an elite special teams where 40-plus yard field goal has a better percentage of splitting the pipes? You're going to have a punter that is good at directional punting. You're going to have coverage units that all seem to be in sync. You're going to have return units that can flip the field for you. Or would you rather have an elite defense? Now, we probably have to define what elite is. Elite probably in college football, top 10, top 15?
Yeah.
Okay. So special teams inside of the top 15.
I have to choose?
Everybody's choosing.
Right.
This appears to be a one-sided conversation by the feedback I'm getting. Elite special teams or elite defense in the Big Ten, where you got to think about this, because in the Big Ten teams that are good have good special teams, good defense. Elite teams have the offense that stress you like none other.
I'm still going to say elite defense. And the reason why I'd say elite defense is because you can have good special teams, and it's not.
They can't stop anybody worth a lick.
Yeah, like to me, good special teams is you have a guy that can line up and get you a 45-yard field goal. Okay, elite is when you never worry about any of the functions, but also you have a guy that could probably give you more than a 50-yard field goal, a guy that's averaging over 45 yards per punt. You have a return element. Like all those things to me are elite. It's great to have, but it's not, it's nothing that you need to, in my opinion, be a championship caliber team, as opposed to where you have an elite defense going up against some of the offenses that you will face. And we could just use Nebraska's schedule as an example when you've got a lot more sophisticated offense with what they're doing with Indiana, but of course, then the playmakers that they have with Ohio State. If you have that elite defense that travels, to me, that's going to be more of a source of comfort as opposed to having elite special teams where your defense is okay, your offense is okay. But I know the point of this exercise, but I would say you don't need to even be close to elite special teams for this to not be a big deal right now.
So I don't think there's a wrong answer. And a lot of people like Brian and Joel and Mike, others that immediately responded, is defense. But let's take the 24 Nebraska team, which is still trying to find an identity on offense and consistency to play 60 minutes of football. And quite frankly, I don't know if that's attainable. But Nebraska can't score points. You got to score points, man. The next 2 games, Nebraska's going to have to score some points.
Yeah.
I think their defense will adjust. I'll focus on Indiana before we get to Ohio State. But you're going to have to score points the next 2 weeks to have a chance. Okay, you can't say, man, if we get to 17, we're going to be fine. Bro, you got to probably put the ball in the end zone at least 4 times, and it seems like Nebraska's ceiling right now against Power 4 teams is kind of capped at 28. So,
I think it's fair.
Can you get points? Are you more likely to get points with this team out of your elite special teams or elite defense?
Oh, that's a great question right there. And again, I would say defense.
Okay. Yeah, and again, I don't think there's a wrong answer here, but this is an interesting way to look at Nebraska because technically, if we're using elite in our definition, Nebraska has an elite defense.
Yeah, by the numbers, by the DVOA and what they're doing, not only within conference, but in college football, it is. And what did we say about this game against Rutgers? If you could have the showing that they ultimately did have, you can now point to Illinois. Just being mindful that there are tendencies that take place, I think, with all even good, very, very good defenses, that you can make the Illinois more of the outlier.
Yep. I think they practiced smarter this past week. I think they practiced smarter than they did against Illinois.
And it was an interesting comment after the game, too, when Matt Rule said that they had practiced harder than and I think people always think harder meaning they were just getting after each other, but there's an element right there, too, of practicing smarter. And I think the ability of this defense, no one's ever going to really question. I think it's when you are in position to make a play, not only are you doing your job, but other guys are doing their job with you. To me, is more of a technical or more of maybe, as you put it there, more of a smarter approach as opposed to, well, they're just busting their ass at practice. I don't ever question this group's energy level or anything like that. It's when you're in position to make a play, are you making the play? Is your teammate making the play next to you? lot more swarming going on. Now, again, the matchup, we talked about this a lot. The matchup led itself into what Nebraska does very well as long as they're tackling. And the leaky yards that we were concerned about, you saw in the first quarter, really non-existent there for pretty much the rest of the way. Even for Ethan.
I think the first quarter Nebraska defensively was in trouble.
Yeah, they were getting gashed.
And I think Tony White helped his defense. And that helped guys make plays.
Mm-hmm.
And their vibe changed completely once the second quarter started.
And
I think instead of we've seen where the players helped a bad day at the office for the DC, the DC gave the players a lifeline, and the players took that, and they were like, this is the way to go today. Right. And so for the last 3 quarters, they were in lockdown mode.
And that's where I still feel confident in saying I would much rather take the elite defense than elite special teams, because the amount of plays, again, that they were on the cusp of making when they're getting to the quarterback and being able to try to jar the football loose. They swarm to the football. All of a sudden, you're seeing the emergence of Sierra Wright, who is a real good cover guy, too, that he's breaking on the football. He's getting turnovers. At some point, if you're doing those things enough, too, you're going to be able to get that score as well, as opposed to giving up some really bad plays when it comes to special teams.
All right, Ben Otte from the BA Coaches Show. He'll join us next. We'll dive into more of the offense than the defense on what to do with QB1 in the bye week and what happened on Saturday with the conditions and Chiano, which I kind of chalk up to. But there are other things in Dylan's game on Saturday that we probably need to discuss. Sometimes, you know what? You don't always want to be hard. You want to be easy. BA Coaches Show. Ben Otte joins us next on 1620 The Zone. All right, Nebraska heads into the bye week 5-1. 3 teams in the top 4 in the Big Ten. Ohio State, Oregon is the huge matchup in Eugene. I think Oregon has a Dylan Gabriel problem, but that isn't new. That's the monster game in the Big Ten this weekend, but Nebraska is off. They are 5-1, so a great time to do a little checkup after the 14-7 win on Saturday against Rutgers with our good friend Ben Otte from the BA Coaches Show. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, all things considered. At the bye week, I feel pretty good about everything.
What does all things considered mean?
5-1?
Yeah, I mean,
Got some issues at home?
5-1. When I say all things considered, I do think there are some operations that scare me a bit, but I can't complain about 5-1.
Ben, I said this starting the show. Just think about what the alternative would be.
100%. I'm with you there.
So let's dive right into this, and let's start at QB1, which he had his first, he's a freshman moment, but now there is 6 games of tape on him, and there are things to work through, and you know that he was probably didn't sleep well Saturday night going through different plays, and will be in the film room heavily this week. I almost wanted at the end of the game for them to say, Dylan's got a cold or something, because he wasn't right, wasn't able to set his feet. Instead of going for the easy throws, he went for the harder throws. The quick blinking where if he sees it, he throws it, wasn't going on in the second half. So let's break this down on how you saw Dylan's day. How much of it was a player playing in those conditions, and then also what Schiano was doing with different stunts, especially in the second half? Walk me through how you saw his day and what he can fix in the meantime.
I honestly saw it as a true freshman quarterback playing against a really well-coached Big Ten defense. I think Rutgers has a pretty solid defense. I know they've given up like a ton of yards to some teams, like to Washington, they gave up a ton of yards. But I do think that they are a very well-coached team. And on that interception, which that's the first bad interception we've seen, I think he just got confused a little bit. Not even confused. He literally, I don't think, saw the guy there. So I think there's some things threw him off. And I agree that a lot of the quick, see a guy, we throw it, that didn't really happen. I feel, especially in the second half, there were a few open guys that we just completely missed. But I do think part of that comes down to of just, hey, that was a really well-coached team. Even if Rutgers maybe wasn't the most talented defense that we faced, maybe, I think for sure they were the best coached. And I think they somewhat took advantage of getting a true freshman quarterback playing in a 6th game against a really good Big Ten defense.
All right, so going back to the interception, Gary and I we briefly touched on this, and I think we were both in agreement that the timing of that play was obviously off with a high snap, and this is where maybe experience comes in play, that as Dylan continues to learn, he won't feel like he needs to make up for lost time and try to get back on track by forcing the ball there. But I do want to get your thought on this. That interception, what it may have done further into the game, where there was one play in particular, Barney would have been wide open on the flat. He was coming off the jet sweep, and it was there. It was open, and we've seen Dylan go out in the flat a lot, go out in that space and really be accurate. He didn't go there, and instead he almost gets picked by Fedoni by going to the middle. How much of just that moment, and whether it's instincts or whatever the decision, what he was going through his head during that interception, how much of that do you think maybe did impact some decisions where, the whole you're seeing ghosts, but no one was actually there, and you decide not to throw to the open receiver there later in the game?
Well, I definitely do think there's something to that, probably. I wouldn't know. I'm not in his head, but just something that I had kind of seen. If you go back and watch that interception play, if you look at Dylan's eyes, he went to that receiver really late when he threw that ball, right? And yes, it was because of the high snap. He then go like the play action look, RPO hypo look, and he really his eyes weren't there until he was basically throwing it. And I think that interception, especially it just being a right in the numbers interception to the defense, I think that played a little bit of a factor, because like you guys had kind of said, we didn't see a lot of that look and throw. I felt like he wasn't really going to be hitting some of those receivers until he was for sure seeing them, and I felt like that just slowed the operation up a little bit, and we missed, like you said, we just missed some open guys because his eyes, I think, were, and I think it's a good thing that he was paying a little bit, closer attention, but I do think we missed some open guys, and maybe that interception did play into that a bit.
He also, there was some sacks for against a unit that coming in only had 4 sacks in 4 games. I thought he held the ball held onto the ball a little bit too long. And man, when he is holding onto that ball with one hand, you got to tuck it. Because I was thinking there was one sack where I thought it was going to pop free. In terms of the pocket, and we know what the foot speed or the instinctual speed of Dillon is. I think he's a lot better vertically than horizontally. But how does he get to the point where in the pocket when he is sensing, because he usually has a good clock in his head. I thought that disappeared on Saturday. Like, how does he develop a slide step? Just so, it's not where he has to scramble, but he can just kind of, do a little, like if you're at Guitars and Cadillacs on a Saturday night and you do a little slide step.
2-step.
Well, I think that, coming in to Nebraska, if there was going to be one, I guess, slight knock on him coming out of high school, was that his footwork wasn't great, right? That was just a thing. That's not even, most high school quarterbacks aren't going to come out with great footwork. That's just kind of how the game is right now. So I do think that those things can definitely be coached. And I think Glenn Thomas has done a fantastic job making a lot of improvements in that area, but I do think that is part of it. Being able to navigate the pocket, that's going to come with a lot of experience. This isn't, like a high school football thing where, hey, the pocket breaks down, I'm a good enough athlete, I can just kind of run around this, or my offensive line is so much better than the defensive line we're going against. So I think some of that's just going to come from experience. I think the footwork getting better. I think overall, he just played like a true freshman going against a good Big Ten coach defense. I think, I don't know, all things going this year, I still trust a struggling Dillon more than I trust pretty much any quarterback on that roster. So,
there's no question in that.
Just based off what we saw last year, so like, I'm going to take this bad moment and, I'll live with it because I do truly think that Dillon's going to learn from this game. Like you said, I think he's going to be in the film room all week, and I think there's going to be a lot of good things to take away from this.
Well, and Ben, the timing of this bye week, and you put in all these factors, came off of a tough one individually from his performance. There were some things there in the first half of that Purdue game that you also take into account, whether it was all his fault or not. And then you also look at the type of guy that they have being able to help him process what he's seeing on film in Glenn Thomas. But also, he being Dillon strikes me as a guy that these little performances does not sit well with him, but now having the ability to not just fully focus in on an upcoming opponent, but also take a little bit of time and look at the games, the first 6 games too. How do you think he responds to that?
Oh, I think he responds very well. I think, like you said, the timing of this bye week is very well because it comes off of, especially for the offense, just coming off 2 games that the offense didn't perform very well, kind of back-to-back weeks. I think this timing of the bye week is very good for us because also I think, honestly, we spend this whole week right now just evaluating ourselves. What went good in these first half of the season, what went bad. Offense is going to have to take a really deep look into the last 2 weeks of, hey, what do we need to fix? What has not looked good at all? And then before, I think we really don't even start looking at Indiana until next week. I think this entire week, assuming, I don't know how they do theirs, but I would guess this bye week's going to basically be a completely self-scout, just from a coaching perspective and the player film perspective.
Hey, when we talk about blowouts in Nebraska and just demolishing a team, we'll usually, and they don't even have a football program anymore, use Pacific. So this was like a Nebraska Pacific beatdown. If you had to use that kind of analogy, how would you go second quarter to the finale of the game? Tony White, defensive coordinator for Nebraska, against Kirk Sriracha, offensive coordinator for Rutgers.
Tony White's defense probably played in one of the best, 3 quarters of football, but the whole second half too. Like, it was absolutely insane. It was a masterful performance. I do say this like half jokingly, but Marcus Satterfield and Ned Foley better be taking him out for a steak dinner this bye week, because, man, he kind of saved some heat off of them a little bit. Because the way Tony White's defense, and they made adjustments. That's what made me super happy. Is the first quarter, I know they didn't come away with any points, but I was a little bit worried watching that first quarter of like, hey, this kind of feels like Illinois a little bit. They're going to keep running. They're going to wear this defense down. That did not happen. Tony White also made some great adjustments, kind of getting heavier on defense and making that Rutgers quarterback beat us, which I think that was going to be a tough task for him, just given his skill set at this point in his career. But I do feel very good about the black shirt defense. I think whatever we saw in Northern Iowa or Illinois, I feel like that's all gone now. I feel like the black shirt defense is back.
Well, and with that, everybody's going to point to the goal line stand, and it was huge. I'm trying to decide if we don't talk about him enough or if he just had a pretty solid game. But in that key stop from Deshaun Singleton with what Rutgers was trying to do, put a guy in motion, and so many times the defender will not be able to get there in time when they throw that ball in the flat, and usually you turn it upfield and boom, it's a touchdown. He was all over that. How much, in your opinion, is that just Deshaun Singleton making an individual play as opposed to having just maybe a quicker beat on that man in motion to be able to make that play as far as schematics go, too?
Oh, I think Deshaun Singleton made a heck of a play. Like you said, so that's a tough play to have to go out there and make just from a deep. So, I don't think there's a ton of ways you could scheme that up to make it that much easier. So I think Deshaun Singleton going and making a huge play. And I honestly think he made a couple good plays. I think Isaac Gifford, he had a rough first, quarter and a half. Isaac Gifford made some plays towards the end of that game. The defense was flying around and from that second quarter, but I'll just say, that second half, going back and watching that second half, the defense was absolutely flying around and just, it almost felt like they were playing off instinct sometimes. We look at the goal line stand, but man, then them getting the ball again on the 28, I forgot the number off top, but getting on the 20-something yard line again and then holding them again to 0 points, I don't know, that's just unworldly level. And like I said, I hope that the other coordinators are buying Tony White a steak dinner this week, because, man, Tony White that defense has been on fire. And like I said, that seemed to just be flying around all off on instinct, man. It was crazy.
And instinct, I think, is the best way to describe that play that I brought up, because, again, I don't want to take anything away from Deshaun Singleton just making a great play, but as soon as he saw that guy in motion, his head was down, following and getting right to that spot that by the time they make that catch, Deshaun Singleton is right on him. Again, not taking anything away from that effort, but it just seemed like that was a great example of them identifying something that Rutgers would want to do in that situation, and they were able to diagnose it and execute it defensively.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think you can look at a lot of things of that game, especially once we get past that first quarter. I feel like whatever film evaluation that we had on them, we felt very confident with. Because, again, like I said, when you're able to just kind of put your head down and fly around and just play off of such instinct, that makes me feel like our defensive staff and obviously our coordinator felt very good on what we had game planned and schemed for them that week, with the confidence to just let those boys fly around and play. I think that's for sure a thing. I think if there's, even that 1% of doubt on what's going on, you might not get that 100% put your foot, because it wasn't even just that play. I felt like we saw that all throughout the game, of just us feeling so good about our assignment and so good about kicking their tail that we were just flying around.
See, I think I said earlier before you came on, Ben, I think they practiced, Rule said harder. I think they practiced smarter. You can tell that side of the ball got deep into the film room for tendencies and other things. The Buford pick, I'm going to give a huge amount of credit to Isaac Gifford, because he read the tunnel screen and he slowed up the wide receiver, which threw that play off. They were a smarter unit on that side of the ball. But the part of the game that was not so smart was, we talk about this every week. Usually we wait 14 minutes into our conversation. What What is wrong with the coverage schemes? Not just Saturday, but we're 6 games in. What is wrong from your vantage point of the coverage schemes with Nebraska's special teams?
I wish I had a solid answer for you right here. I agree that the coverage and punt coverage especially, to me, that has been a lot more. What I saw throughout the whole season so far, but especially Saturday, is way more concerning than any blocked or missed field goal to me. Just because a lot of those, it's like, okay, it was a bad long snapper. We got to figure out the long snapper.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked about it last week. Having a gunner going through the back of the end zone on a punt, not a good look. What I thought was very alarming was everyone knows we're punting. We're backed up pretty far. We take a delay a game and then get the ball punted. We get that punt blocked, right after that. That was a really bad look. And we just have guys out there that are missing assignments, missing blocks. I can't remember off the top of my head, and I wouldn't want to call the kid out, but we had one of our guys just completely whiff on two guys that ended up making a big play on that block punt. The one early in the game also, it's just a lot. I'll be real. So I'm not the biggest special teams guru out there, right? I've never been a high school special teams coordinator or whatever. So I reached out to someone who's a college special teams coordinator, and I was just like, hey man, we've been cool for a while. Can you give me what's going on here? Because I'm losing my mind watching these games. And he said a lot of it is obviously execution, repetition, and discipline. And then he texted me again and said, extra emphasis on discipline. So I don't know if that's what's going on. Because I know with the University of Nebraska, they're getting enough reps to try and figure this out. And then he also said, you just got to have guys that understand football out there. You got to coach those things up. Like when you're talking about, that one kick that, hey, we're ready for hands team here. We don't have anybody blocking. We can't just be taking this one. We got to fair catch that one and just take our losses here. I mean, we kind of got bailed out by getting that late hit penalty on that.
Hey, it goes back to they're just dumb football.
Yeah.
Why? And of all people, I don't know when you are the lone man back there because Nebraska thinks there might be an onside kick. Why not fair catch it? Nebraska got
100%.
Nebraska got bailed out.
I don't sound like a jerk, but that's what you teach high school kids.
Well, and that's not a freshman back there. That's Ramir, who I think he was at Nebraska before Shiano came back to Rutgers. You fair catch. They got lucky with the late hit that got him an additional 15, but even a fair catch, you start at the 25. And then I don't know what Ramir was doing sliding.
Yeah.
He was sliding at the 15-yard line.
I'm with you there, man.
All right. I got that off my chest. Thank you very much.
I want to go back again to what we saw offensively and again with what happened in the second half. This question is always brought up when Nebraska has a lead. We saw the lead that they had against Colorado. Now it was the reverse effect last week against Purdue, where they came on strong in the second half, made adjustments. How much of this game, though, and knowing how well the defense was playing, what Rutgers can and can't do you think impacted the play calling in the second half of Nebraska offensively, where you just didn't? I mean, how much, I guess maybe the better question is how much of what Nebraska didn't do offensively has to do with just not executing as opposed to more conservative play calling?
Well, I do think we saw a little bit more conservative play calling, especially with how, I guess, good the defense has played. But I feel like part of the conversation comes to a little bit what we talked about last week of not fully having an identity yet, which I hope in this bye week we at least through this self-scout we try and figure out. And the reason I say that is hey, everyone's going to have games where things aren't clicking somewhere, right? But you have to be able to what is our bread and butter? What is the bread and butter of this offense? Or, you know what I mean? And for some teams, it's as simple as, hey, we're going to run inside zone and outside zone. We do that so well. We're going to run it on every first down. It's coming, line up and stop it. Some teams are going to say, hey, we feel really good about our short, quick game. We're going to feel so good about our RPO. This is our bread and butter. This is what we're going to go back to. I don't think Nebraska has established for themselves what that bread and butter is when things aren't going good. What are you going to get back to, if that makes any sense? And that's something I think we got to figure out, because there's going to be another game like this through the next 6 games, the last 6 games of the year. We're going to have another game where things aren't going great offensively.
we have to be able to go back to what is the bread and butter of this offense? What are we going to run to try and, hey, we got to get something going. I just don't think we've established that yet. And that's something I really want to see going forward, because I do think Marcus Satterfield, the play design this year, and like I've been like some of those plays we saw, like that touchdown to Bonner was beautiful. I was taking that, and then that little fake jet, throw it back to Ramir. Like I was sending that to a whole bunch of my coaching friend offensive coordinators. Like, hey, I'm just saying you might want to study Nebraska a little bit. But some of those things I felt really good with. I think my biggest criticism through the first, 6 games, and again, I know we're 5-1, but offensively, I just want to, like, what is the identity? When things aren't going well, what are we going to go back to get ourselves out of this?
Yep. Enjoy the bye week. We will chat on a week from today to get ready for the next 3-game stretch. But as always, appreciate it. Looking forward to all the content this week on the BA Coaches Show.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
That's Ben Audie, joins us every Monday. You want an identity that's portable, elite special teams, elite defense? Look at Ohio State. Line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
I mean, people are using the stat of Iowa's recent run against top 10 teams that they're getting blown out and ranked teams compared to previous. Can't win the line of scrimmage. Can't win both lines of scrimmage. Offensive line, defensive line. I look at Ohio State because I think there are very few elite teams in college football. Texas and Ohio State right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why people are putting Oregon and Penn State in Ohio State's tier. Ohio State is in a tier by themselves, but they showed on Saturday win the line of scrimmage consistently. Nebraska stretches during the game. They were winning on the offensive line. Kick-out blocks. Lutovsky looked good. Evans looked good. Then all of a sudden, they went through a spell where I don't know that this offense can play a full 60 minutes of consistent football. The snaps all of a sudden were high. Mm-hmm. Guys were getting beat one-on-one, and everything just bogged down.
Yeah.
If you can win the line of scrimmage on both sides, you don't have to worry about that.
It was the most noticeable thing in the second half, too, where in a game the previous week against Purdue where it seemed like Dillon had, even when he was missing throws or just, opting to live for another down, he had time. You saw a lot of that happening. This was a Rutgers team that didn't come in sacking the quarterback either. But the amount of pressure that you all of a sudden saw Dillon under, where it wasn't always
a little bit his fault. He held the ball. He held the ball a little bit longer because he wanted instead of the easy throw, he wanted the hard throw.
Yeah, and
those are late developing. Those and we don't. Nebraska doesn't have guys that are blowing people off the line of scrimmage. It takes a little bit longer.
Yeah. The one play I think you were referring to, because I thought the exact same thing when he got thrown down. I believe that was the third down before they gave the ball back to Rutgers, where he gets spun down and he's got the ball in one hand, and I was waiting for that thing to squirt forward. I do think there was something maybe going on. I know people brought up illness or something.
I think it's conditions. Schiano, they got tape on him.
Yeah.
Now it's in, the ball is in Dillon's court.
It's a good time to be in the lab.
Adjust.
Yeah.
It's fine. He looked like a freshman. Nebraska still won.
Yeah.
He struggled. Nebraska still won.
Now I saw somebody.
But you got to score points. Nebraska's ceiling right now is 28 points. They got to score.
Yep.
I don't care how good that defense is.
This was brought up in the stream that I actually would disagree with when it came to that. He looked like maybe he was pouting a bit, or he looked like he just wasn't, the body language wasn't good. I actually look at it completely the opposite. I thought this is where I mentioned this last week in the first half of the Purdue game, the second half, where he struggled in the first half, played really well in the second half, didn't see really any change body language wise. Noticing that in the second half of this game where things weren't going well. And even after the interception, that was the first thing I looked at, especially on TV because they were showing him on the sideline. And he's getting right back to trying to dissect what he missed. He's in communication. But as far as him wearing emotions, whether he's smiling and happy on the sideline or really pissed off on the sideline, you're not going to see that from him. So all I know is when they took that final snap in the victory formation, when Rutgers doing the pile drive, because that's what Greg Schiano does, the pile drive, he was pumped, man, because he knows he didn't play well, but they got a victory. And that's the only body language that I really care about.
Look like a kid who has been very successful that all of a sudden was battling conditions, a Schiano defense, and was maybe afraid to throw an interception. He never really set his feet as well when that game changed, but they won a game. And they're 5-1.
It's a one-score game.
And it's not, if that's his worst game, You'll take that and you'll move on. We'll move on. Evan Bland of the World Herald will join us next. Jacob Bigelow is still to come. We'll sneak in some basketball because 4 weeks from today, they'll be cutting down the nets to prepare for a season like none other of Mr. Flag at Duke. That's where I was going.
Okay, I was curious where you're going with that one. All right.
EB from the OWH joins us next. right, welcome back in on a Monday. Busy sports day again. We got 2 games in the ALDS. Game 2, Guardians-Tigers, and then the Royals and the Yankees. And just a little bit after that, first pitch in the Bronx between Carlos Rodon, Salvi Perez, not your friend, and Cole Reagan's. The Chiefs and the Saints kick off. But before we do all of that, we've been waiting all morning to talk to our good friend from the Omaha World-Herald, Evan Bland. Good morning.
Yes, I'm a letdown compared to all those games that you just mentioned there, but I'll help you pass the time.
Evan, I'll take you over Tarek Skubal any day, buddy.
I'm sorry for you. I mean, no, that sounds fun. We'll get the countdown going.
Hey, we had an old-fashioned Big Ten rock fight on Saturday in Lincoln at the Quarry. Not just 5-1, but did you learn anything new about this edition of Nebraska football after Saturday's game?
I feel like what I saw maybe clearer than I've seen from this team has been its ability to embrace the big moments. And, you know, like a lot of players afterwards were asked about winning a one-score game and all that goes into that. And I thought what Deshaun Singleton said resonated with me. It's like we don't feel the pressure in those moments anymore. Like as they've come along this year, they would say, and other guys echoed this sentiment, like when you get into those key 3rd and 4th down situations, like they see it now as a chance to make a play and a chance to make a memory and to celebrate and have a moment. And so like you saw that with the goal line stand in the second half, and you saw that on different key 4th downs, ones that Rutgers missed and ones that Nebraska got. Like I thought Nebraska set the tone on its first offensive drive when it went for it on 4th and 1 from its own 36. Like that's a situation in the past, I think, where Nebraska players maybe would get a little nervous or a little tense and say, boy, what could go wrong here? And they just went out and embraced competition and embraced the moment. And like, that's what you have to do in a Big Ten that's so tight from teams, 3 to 16, where there's so little separation. And so it does come down, I think, a lot of the times to these little culture moments, these little mindset moments. You have to have some of these swing plays go Nebraska's way. They got lucky with the drop from the Rutgers receiver down the sideline, but you also kind of make your own luck a little bit in these kind of games. And so I thought it was just a really strong showing, strong result from where this team is mentally, and just sort of, again, the power of culture as it starts to maybe manifest in some of these one-score games.
How do you, just from quarter 1 through 4, observe, evaluate, and how does he move forward the Dylan Raiola performance from everything that you saw against Rutgers?
I mean, it struck me as sort of a freshman game for him a little bit. He had his first, interception that was on him on the play where he didn't see Dixon over the middle. I just think he didn't see him. I mean, he was trying to throw that slant and throw it to him. I felt like there were a lot of moments, especially kind of in the middle quarters of the game, where he had guys open in the flat or, 5 yards downfield, and he elected to try for the deeper, more difficult throws. And occasionally it worked, but a lot of times it didn't. And I thought that was unusual from what we've seen from Raiola through his previous 5 games. I thought he'd been very willing to take what the defense gave him and setting up his guys in space. And it just, for whatever reason, wasn't the case a lot of the time. And then, in the second half, the offense really never got into much of a rhythm. I mean, it was hard to find first downs. It was hard to kind of set up a play with something different just because they weren't on the field all that often. But, again, like I thought it kind of struck me as like that was the floor for Raiola, and the floor was still pretty high. I mean, he still generally took care of the football, executed the plays. I thought I think it was the second quarter where he had the fake handoff, the fake end around, and then turned around and threw the screen. Like that was a pretty play. Like that was, you look at him and say, not a lot of Nebraska quarterbacks in the past could have executed that particular sequence. So I think that's probably what I'd say is it was maybe his least impressive game as a Husker, but it was also one that shows that even when he's not on his A game, like the floor is still pretty high.
This is an interesting offense from the standpoint they had a second half against Colorado where they didn't score but won. They had a first half against Purdue in which they didn't score and won. They had a second half Saturday that they didn't score and they won. And it leads to the question, because the competition ratchets it up the next 2 weeks after the bye. What's preventing this team from playing a 60-minute football game where instead of the defense bailing out a bad day at the office for you, you can supplement that defense for 60 minutes of football?
Well, I mean, I think if you're looking at it optimistically, and I think this is what Nebraska would say internally, it's like, hey, we're 5-1, and special teams have been a liability a lot of the time. And the offense, as you said, hasn't played a full 60 minutes really at all to this point. And so, what's holding them back? I think part of it, you just got to give credit to the opposing defenses. I mean, they haven't played world-beating programs overall, but Colorado's defense is a good defense. And I think we've seen that in the weeks that have followed. Rutgers has a good defense. Greg Schiano's a really good defensive coach, and they adjusted in the second half. So I do think that's part of it. The next 2 weeks, Indiana especially, I think will be interesting because they're much more of a sort of an air it out kind of team. I don't think that they're as interested in protecting their defense the way that some of those other schools are. Like, I think they want to go out and score points and do what they do and try to make it a race to 30 and that sort of thing. And so maybe that's a situation that helps. And, I think to be fair with Saturday too, like the conditions were not ideal for good offensive football. I mean, they just weren't. Like the wind was swirling. It was hot. It was hot. The wind shifted. Like things were unpredictable in that sense too. So I think they're still working through some things there. Raiola to me is still someone who's learning how to play at the college level. And so I don't think Indiana's defense is a world beater. Ohio State, that's kind of its own animal. But like you look at the second half, I mean, Wisconsin's defense hasn't been great. Iowa's defense has taken a step back from what it was. UCLA seems like they're getting more depleted by the week. So maybe that's still coming. And I do think, one of Nebraska's strengths relative to the league is going to be its depth. The fact that it plays so many guys, the fact that it works out its scout team guys, that they have more bodies ready, I think, to fill in as attrition comes up than a lot of these other teams do too. So maybe that's another area where some of that advantage really starts to bear out here late in October and into November.
Evan, Gary brought up a good point about when I think of the goal line stand and you think about the guys that were involved, the guys up front, and we saw a lot of Riley Van Poppel. In fact, he had a lot of snaps. We knew that, hey, he's got 4 games that they can use him, so they're going to use him correctly. This was one of those games where you could definitely use a Riley Van Poppel, but his impact, it's hard to look away from that. Do you think there's other conversations going on about Riley Van Poppel as far as what the ultimate plan is for him, knowing that he has one more game to fulfill the 4 games as opposed to maybe rethinking about the red shirt this year?
Well, I mean, that'll definitely be a question Rule's going to be asked today. I'll ask it if no one else does.
Thank you.
Yes. I think that's absolutely.
Wait, Evan, I got some other questions. If I'll just text them to you later. Okay,
Evan, ask about Mazuka.
Yeah, he loves that, doesn't he? Yeah. You may have heard he's a backup player for them right now.
We all make a big deal out of it, though.
No, but I think the Van Poppel conversation to me, I think it could maybe be changing. The line that Matt Rule has always said has been, we're not going to redshirt guys if we feel like they could give us a chance to win now. And I think we saw Van Poppel absolutely fit into that conversation. And Rule said afterward, too, that they viewed Rutgers as sort of a big body game. Like that's where you want your big guys out there to defend a run-heavy team. And so he was successful in that. And you kind of can look at the second half. I don't know that Indiana's a big body team necessarily. Ohio State could be. Wisconsin, Iowa, I think those teams could be. So yeah, I mean, Van Poppel's played well enough to be a factor in that rotation, to spell some of the other defensive linemen. If you can take Ty Robinson or Nash Hutmaker off the field for a handful of snaps and not see any kind of a drop off, and then have those guys fresh for some clutch moments later in the game, like you got to do it. Mm-hmm. So Yeah, I mean, I think Van Poppel, we saw kind of his coming out moment a year ago in that Illinois game on that goal line stand. That was kind of his first moment.
Yep.
And he's steadily progressed since then. So yeah, maybe he has shown enough progress and has become enough of a factor that Nebraska revisits that conversation. I know long term, of course, they like what his potential could be in 2 or 3 years. But I think, again, if you're trying to win games now, you're in the portal era, guys are getting paid. I think that redshirt conversation is a little different than it was 5 years ago. And so maybe what Van Poppel's shown us on the field has changed the calculation so far.
Evan Bland of the World Herald joining us. How would you describe to an outsider, because you've talked to him, I've talked to him, he's a great interview in James Williams. How would you describe to an outsider this guy that 16 months ago was thinking about going back to ICC, gets a DM from a Nebraska coach, and we get to the point on Saturday where he has the day that he's had, and that's back-to-back Saturdays, and he kind of starts to tell the story that is more than the guy that wears number 90. His relationship with Terrence Knighton, his kind of background with things that went on in the end of last year personally to where he is today. I mean, where would you start to tell the story to an outsider of this guy named James Williams that showed up 16 months ago, has captured a lot of people's hearts after this past weekend, and is like, now, man, is this guy's ceiling through the roof? Where would you start?
I mean, I think it's twofold. I think there's the personal side, which you kind of laid out, Gary, just about, a guy at the JUCO level who showed out at a camp and got his chance. But there's also, I think if you're in Nebraska, I mean, this is a guy that you absolutely showcase and say, hey, nobody else wanted him. We saw something in him. We saw the measurables. He had flashes last year. He had his moments. And they had the foresight with a few games left to say, hey, let's redshirt him. Let's develop him physically, get him into a situation where he can be more than just a third down pass rushing specialist. And I think he's starting to get to that point a little bit. But I mean, he was really candid Saturday night about Nebraska coaches and Terrence Knighton in particular, his position coach, about being there for him. I think he's been through a lot personally. I mean, and stories like that aren't super rare when it comes to just kind of the junior college life and how guys get to that point. But you don't see a lot of those guys, make that jump to a Power 5 program. He was on the scout team a year ago at this time, and he got called up kind of in the second half to be a little bit of a change up for what they were looking for from a pass rushing perspective. So, again, like his personal story is really good. I think he's been an inspiration to a lot of the guys who are still on the scout team. The coaches point to a guy like James Williams and say, this can be you. Like mid-season, if you improve, if you put in the work, like you can be a factor in games, if it's even just for a few snaps. So it'll be interesting to see. He would say that his next step would be to be more of an every down lineman, and that probably won't happen this year, in part because of how deep Nebraska is at that position. But you wonder with another offseason if he could be, somebody who's on the field more than half the time, and what he could be. And for what it's worth, he's got some swag to him too. I mean, he's doing the silencer out there. He's waving goodbye to Ethan Kaliak-Manis. He's doing everything short of saying, "Hey, do you want that in paper or plastic?" It's the Jack man. So it's he's got the swag going right now.
All right, so crazy to think because it feels like it just started last week, but we're at the halfway point of the college football season for this team. They're 5-1, which I think a lot of people would say, if they're 5-1 going into that first bye week with Indiana on the horizon, how are you feeling? And I think a lot of people would be okay with that, given some of the starts that Nebraska's had in previous years. But obviously, there had to be context involved in this. How do you evaluate the first 6 games for Nebraska? What looks maybe as you expected? What looks different? And what's your optimism level, or just your overall outlook for the remainder, the second half of the season?
Yeah, I mean, there was all the preseason talk about them being 7-0 into Ohio State. I kind of looked at this 4-game stretch that they're still in as being really critical for what it would be as the Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, Indiana stretch, and kind of felt like, hey, if you go 3-1 in that stretch, then like you're onto something. If it's 2-2, I think people would begrudgingly take it. 1-3, you're probably pretty frustrated. And so, Illinois, as it turns out, maybe was that moment for Nebraska of learning that hard lesson, and especially with the high of the Colorado win, like that was sort of the reminder that, hey, the Big Ten, there's going to be no easy weeks. You haven't arrived yet. And, they took it to heart the last couple of weeks. And I think these last 2 weeks have been especially important because they've proven to themselves that they can win tight games in the league. And I know Purdue's not very good, but they were down. Nebraska was down in the third quarter, and they pounded the rock, and they kind of followed the blueprint that they have always talked about doing to win that game. And then at Rutgers, of course, they have the lead, they hold on, they make the plays down the stretch, and they win. So I think it's a team that has an identity, that has found some confidence. I think, Raiola is going through it. I think he was off to a hot start, and these Big Ten defenses who are being coordinated by, guys making seven figures have brought it down to earth a little bit, but I think there's every reason to believe that he continues to improve. Knock on wood, they've been pretty healthy to this point. Really, Tommy Hill's injury and Turner Corcoran's in season, I mean, that's really all they've had. Teddy Prohaska had his ACL in training camp, so they've been pretty fortunate in that regard. And I think the defense, even with a couple of wobbly weeks there, at least relative to their standards, has been what we thought it would be. It's going to be the anchor to this group, and maybe the biggest storyline in these first 6 games has been winning the turnover margin. They haven't lost the turnover battle in a week yet. I think they tied 1 week. I mean, this is a team that was so bad in that category last year. It just undercut everything they did. They had the 31 fumbles, about half of those of which they lost. So they're giving themselves a chance. I think they're just playing Big Ten style football. They're controlling possession. They're protecting their defense. They're picking their moments. And so I think it's what you see in like a year or two. Like that's the culture piece isn't really much of a conversation point anymore. It's about the football. It's been about physical development, scheme, confidence. And so I think you feel pretty good about where Nebraska is. And now that the opposition level goes up a little bit here with Indiana and Ohio State and some of these other teams in the second half. And I think what Nebraska has done to build that confidence, to figure out who it is going to make it competitive in pretty much all these games down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. Evan, as always, we appreciate it. Great seeing you this past weekend. Make sure you ask that question. Sneak in a bazooka will be good, and we'll have you back next Monday.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
See you, Evan.
That's Evan Bland from the Omaha World Herald. Quickly, guess the line. You guys want to guess the line for Indiana, Nebraska? It's not out, but both teams are off a bye week, which the next 4 teams Nebraska is going to play are will be coming off a bye.
Indiana -4.5.
I'll go 6.5.
I'm in Nick's neighborhood. I think 4.5.
I think that's going to, and I'm trying to say what would happen with both teams not in action this week, how that thing would fluctuate that much.
I think 4.5. 4.5 sounds about right. Yeah. When we return, do we want to know more about the James Williams story?
Yeah.
Because it is, there's an element before Saturday that says a lot about a football coach at Nebraska. We'll get into that when we come back. Jacob Bigelow stops by top of the hour on Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
It's officially the wonderful time of the year, Val's season. Val's open now through November 3rd. Has family fun you know and love, including 2 new rides this year, Fry's Egg Spinners and Tim's Runaway Grain Train. And also don't forget about the delicious food like fresh pies, caramel apples, kettle corn, turkey legs, and more. If you miss your chance to win the Zone Deal, this is your last chance to score free passes into Vala's Pumpkin Patch. Enter to win online at 1620thezone.com.
Be bumping on Saturday.
There are other places out there as well.
There is. Go to all of them.
Yeah. I went to Dittmer's yesterday over in Council
Bluffs.
Bluffs.
Oh, yeah, you told me about that last year.
My grandparents, Reese's grandparents, my in-laws took him there last week as well. So,
it's a fun place.
There's a place in Blair, Skinny Bones.
The berry place that one of the listeners told me last year.
The Bellevue Berry Farm.
Man, if I got out more, I'd go to all of them.
I think the emotion of James Williams on Saturday, and you see his connection to Terrence Knighton, which just reminds you that a coach is not just a person that has a whistle around their neck. They are much more to the young men and women that they coach. They become parents. Sometimes you have athletes that come and play for you that don't have parents. And I think James is a great interview. And he got some swag. Evan is absolutely right. And he's got a story to tell. I think this is a great story, that it's his story to tell, because it has not been easy for him. His home life is much different from the three of us in this studio. Yeah. And his life challenges with people that are in his life when they are no longer there, and what you have to do. And then also the fact of being an athlete, you also have to be a student. So it's his story to tell. And he can tell it whenever he wants. He started to tell it a little bit more, but it was more about Nebraska 16 months ago needed him. Today, James Williams needs Nebraska more. And I think there is one part of his story, because he said this, that is amazing about how he ended up at Nebraska. He was at Iowa Central Community College. Mm-hmm. You know, JUCO life isn't the greatest. But shout out Iowa Western, by the way, beat Snow, Hunter Deckers. Having a great year. Banned from the NCAA, former Iowa State quarterback, could get on an NFL training camp roster or go play in the XFL or whatever. But junior college life is not for everybody. And he wasn't, here's the thing that will surprise people. He wasn't a frontline guy at ICC.
Right.
He wasn't like a big-time junior college, hey, Georgia, Alabama are coming to talk to you. Mm-hmm. So Nebraska saw tape, and they saw him on there, and they looked at his measurables, and they slid into his DMs and said, "We'd like you to come to the post-grad camp last summer." And he was like, "All right, not sure what I'm going to do," because at the time he was contemplating going back to ICC because he had one more year of junior college. So he comes to Lincoln, and Terrence Knighton falls in love with him and says, we got to have you. Mm-hmm. We got to have you. And he says, "We got to get you in front of Matt Rule." And James Williams said, "You mean the guy that was just the head coach with the Carolina Panthers?" And they're like, "Yeah." So he goes and meets with Rule, and Rule immediately says, "What is it going to take to get you to Nebraska?" Now, when they said that, they had not shared one of his testing numbers. So when he was here for the post-grad camp, he did the 3-cone drill. Mm-hmm. His number on the 3-cone drill is equivalent to a first-round pick in the NFL at the same position and same measurables.
Yeah.
And they're like, "You are not leaving here without committing to Nebraska." And they got him in. They worked through the adjustment to major college football, going to school, all of that stuff. Get your body right, get your mind right. We love you. We got you on a plan. We're gonna give you a little appetizer. We saw against Northwestern last year. Mm-hmm. And then he's kind of persevered. And you saw how his teammates reacted to him when he was having success, especially the last 2 weeks. I mean, 43% of his tackles in his career at Nebraska have been sacks. We've all been searching for the next Randy Gregory type pass rusher. You may have found that guy that's wearing number 90. I think it's his story to tell. He's kind of telling a little bit of it. But when he does, it's an amazing story of perseverance, life away from football, and how life in football is family. And if he continues to ball out like this and they find roles for him, this year before he plays more.
Yeah.
He can be on the field for 3 downs. This is a great story that you might as well get that Hollywood script ready, because James Williams, there's going to be more told about this. And I think it's great because I love him. I think he's a great interview. He's very honest. He's very appreciative of where he's at.
And
probably is the best way to say it.
When we always see the brotherhood that they talk about in college football, all you need to do is see the scene at the end of the game when Nebraska has the football, they're in victory formation, and I'm glad they stuck with it for a while. Even after one kneel down, they'd go right back to James Williams. First, there was the embrace from Terrence Knight, and then it was MJ Sherman. Then it was Jamari Butler. I mean, everybody. Hell, there are people from the training staff that are hugging him. These long embrace where you can see he's in tears, and that's
it's
where
a struggle for him daily.
And that's the thing. That's where there's something that he not only has going on in his life and his personal life and losing members of his family, but also for a guy that has really used this relationship that he has with his teammates and his coaching staff as a very powerful outlet. And then when you happen to perform at the level that he did in a big way on Saturday too, it just seemed like it all kind of came to a head there, which again, it's a great story. It's so cool to see that path, whatever your personal life is, whether it's not ideal or ideal, to be able to have that path from junior college football into Nebraska and to make that name for yourself and then to build himself up physically like they have. I remember earlier in the year, they were talking about how teammates basically had to shove protein shakes to him because he needed to put on weight. It's a guy that is also being looked at by his brothers, by his coaching staff. So yeah, it's not much more you can say other than this is a great story and it continues to develop.
Jacob Bigelow. A story among many stories that he had in Chicago with the Big Ten Media Days. He'll share as much as he wants. I heard all about it on Saturday. I'm kidding a little bit. But we'll talk some football and basketball with Jacob when he joins us next on 1620 The Zone. By the way, to get in the mix for the 1620 The Zone Pick'em for this week, make sure you get signed up for the email because you're going to get access. That comes out in 58 minutes. You want to win $2,500? You want to have an advantage? Sign up for the email club. Go to 1620thezone.com right now. All right, let's welcome in our next guest who tweeted out not too long ago, actually less than 24 hours ago, spent most of the day in recovery mode after a marathon type of week that saw me in 3 different states. Did happen to get most of my prep done for a rather significant podcast interview that I have on the books for later this week. So stay tuned for that. Going to spend a lot of the week sleeping, except when he's on this show. Jacob Bigelow from Huskers Illustrated joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. What a rousing introduction. A good song choice, too, because one of the few things I'm good at is rambling. But it's good to be here.
And you are a man.
Good to be with you all.
Yeah. Did you spend time in Vegas at all over this little 3-state swing here?
I did not. No.
I don't know what you're
No.
You know what I did? I did notice now this makes sense because you were awful quiet sitting in front of me on Saturday.
Were you hungover?
You say that like I've been loud at previous games?
Well,
I got to tell Jacob to quit cheering.
I believe that we were rather animated on Saturday during that game.
Yeah. Oh, I usually try to keep my head down up there. I'm not really, I'm not too boisterous. I let those around me do that. I usually just, keep my head down and try to get my stuff done for the most part on Saturdays.
Do we need a pylon cam in Big Ten games? Would a pylon cam have given Thomas Fidone a touchdown on Saturday?
It might have. And funny enough, one of the Huskers Illustrated photographers, Jimmy Rash, that was one of the pictures going around that it looked like Fidone was in on that play. We might need a pylon cam. It definitely was some questionable instances officiating wise on Saturday, but then again, it is a Big Ten football game after all, and we've talked plenty about officiating in the Big Ten, so maybe that's something that could be coming down the line.
Yeah, because in real time, it did not look like he was able to turn and stay in bounds, but when they slowed that down. And unfortunately, in the broadcast, Dean Blandino came in right as the officials were already making their call. So we didn't even get a full Dean Blandino experience on that, too, which was actually very, very disappointing because I think he could have spoken into existence for a touchdown.
I don't know. There's the randomness of replays in the Big Ten and college football. Like the touchdown that was not a touchdown that was ruled on the field as not a touchdown, Monangai, which they told Schiano that it wasn't a touchdown. There wasn't even going to be a review.
Right.
And then they reviewed for some, defenseless players. Can you make any rhyme or reason of replay in college football?
No, I don't really think anybody can. It's just kind of an ongoing. I feel like almost all of the games in that stadium this year, there's just been a laundry list of replay reviews that have made the games go on a little longer than they need to. But there's definitely not much rhyme or reason to it, in my opinion.
Now, Jacob, I don't know if you're in this category, or if you experience this through social media and people you interact with, but it was an interesting bit of post-game commentary from some, not in the media, but just some fan reaction, that there was still a lot of picking apart at this win, yet all week there was a lot of, Rutgers makes me nervous, Rutgers makes me scared. And I remember Gary even throwing out some random score and said, would you take it? I said, yeah, because they won. Now, and maybe it was because special teams was so bad that there's that one so-called turd in the punch bowl, if you will, that you look at that aspect and it doesn't allow you to enjoy the fact that they did win the game against a team, again, that a lot of us were building up and saying, I don't know about this game. They won the game. So why do we keep moving the goalposts on this team?
It's just very prisoner of the moment. I would argue that there's almost no bigger prisoner of the moment place than this state during football season. It never feels like anything is good enough, or if something goes wrong, it's the end of the world and the sky is falling. Yes, they won the football game. It was not always pretty. I would say it was far from perfect. I think your true freshman quarterback looked like a true freshman for the first time, and the 6th game of his collegiate career Obviously the defense, did what most expected, not expected, but wanted it to be able to do at the start of the season. I think I think there is such thing as inept offensive ineptitude on offense playing a part in that as well from the Rutgers side. But there are some things that you can look at and still ask questions about. But at the end of the day, should still be able, if you're a fan, to enjoy the win. And you're 5-1 through 6 games.
Do you think they want to open this offense up, or do they they're walking it through with a extremely talented freshman through 6 games? Do you think this offense can be opened up? I'm just going to leave that. Can it be opened up?
I think in a perfect world, they'd like for it to be opened up. I think sometime, at least to start games. I know we've heard Matt Rule say that the goal is to, be boring in the fourth quarter and just run the clock out. But I think in a perfect world, there would be a scenario where they could open it up a little bit, early on to, try to take some shots and score some points. But obviously it depends on, matchups and all that. But I think it could be, but it's going to have to be, the right moment, the right opponent that, all that goes into the mix for that to take place.
Confidence level that Dylan gets into the film room with Glenn Thomas, with Marcus Satterfield, what he has taken in these first 6 games comes out, and we have just now for this season. I know there's some more years coming up that will be very good for him, but that we haven't seen the best of Dylan this season yet because of what he will be able to do from the first 6 games that he's able to process, and now with the bye week put forward.
Yeah, that's a good question because obviously he has 6 games of film to look at, but the rest of the teams on the schedule now also have 6 games of film to look at, and they can, we've heard opposing coaches wax poetic about the way that he handles the offense and the way he runs it, how beyond his years he is for a true freshman. But that's a good question. I'd say I like the chances more than not, but I also think that they're the 6 teams. Well, 5 of the 6 teams left on the schedule, I think, are going to be coached at a higher level than the first 6 teams on the schedule. So I think it'll be an interesting cat and mouse game, how teams scheme to defend Dylan and how he takes what he's learned from the first half of the season to use it for the rest of the way.
Hey, let's Nebraska and the Big Ten in this conversation. Let's go big picture on the college football. What does Vanderbilt beating Alabama mean for the sport? Parity, or sometimes good teams lose?
I am still trying to process that happened. As someone who, I'm young, I'm on the younger side, but as someone who, I feel like, that was the craziest, thing from Saturday. That was the craziest college football result that I've seen in quite a while. And I know that may sound like extreme hyperbole considering it's, 2 teams from the same conference, but it's Vanderbilt football. It's Vanderbilt football. They were 0-60 in their history against the number 1 team. I feel like I saw the thing going around on Twitter saying today was for him. It was like the one lonely Vanderbilt student watching Alabama beat them like 56-7 a few years back. Just that I think it means we could be in for a really chaotic rest of the way, and I don't think it means parity. I don't think it means. I'm still trying to put my finger on exactly what it may mean in the long run, but it's Monday morning, and I still haven't quite processed that the Vanderbilt beat Alabama, and they hung 40 points on them too.
But that doesn't mean, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that doesn't all of a sudden mean that Vanderbilt's good, right?
No,
it's to Georgia State.
Yeah. See, I think it is. I don't. The same teams are the same teams. Yeah. I just don't think no one is safe from an upset nowadays, and sometimes good teams lose. So I look at, if your team is 5-1 and you would like, man, they could be 6-0 and they've got some things to work on at 5-1. Take 5-1 and run, man. In this day and age, where essentially I think anybody with 2 losses or less in college football is still alive for the playoff.
Yeah.
In the Power Four.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. I'm not saying Vanderbilt. What I'm about to say doesn't mean something about Vanderbilt either. But I mean, we've heard coaches across the country say that NIL and the portal and the extra eligibility has leveled the playing field. I'm not saying Vanderbilt's got some elite, football op for NIL, but I mean, they've got older guys, experienced guys. I mean, Diego Pavia is a perfect example, but I mean, they've got better players now than they probably have in the past. That doesn't mean they're going to be a juggernaut, but they're closer to leveling the playing field than in previous years.
Are you ready to you probably already did this over the weekend, turn the page to the Nebraska-Indiana 2-week hype train that we will now have leading up to that fateful Saturday in Bloomington, Illinois, or Indiana, Illinois, the other Bloomington.
Yeah, the other Bloomington, not the headquarters of State Farm, the college town.
Yes.
It's going to be I mean, I'm interested. I'm very intrigued by the matchup. I think there's going to be, people around here are going to have to, I'm interested in what the discourse turns into, because I think there's going to be, we're still 2 weeks out, but I mean, and obviously Indiana's undefeated, and I think there's going to be a lot of people trying to pick apart the schedule and say they haven't played anybody and, all that jazz, but we'll cross that bridge when it gets to next week. But I think it'll be a fun matchup nonetheless.
All right, Chicago Big Ten Media Days. What did you learn about the collection of Fred Hoibergers that are going to be starting here 4 weeks from today as a preseason 12th in an 18-team league? What stood out to you?
I was intrigued by Fred. I could listen to Fred talk basketball for quite a while. He's a savant with the sport, but that's beside the point. He, once again, really likes this group, but he said to us that he thinks this is the most versatile, roster he's had since he's been in Lincoln in terms of lineups, rotations, and, guys that can play multiple spots, multiple positions. And then listening to Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary, they definitely, two pretty different, personalities, between the two of them. But they both, they echoed a, quiet confidence that, they know how good they can be. They don't think last year was a fluke or just luck by any means. And, they think they can still, compete with the best of them in the conference.
How did you enjoy the coaching panel chat format with Media Days?
I actually really liked it. I know it got mixed reviews, but I think Dave Revson did a really good job asking questions with the first groups, and then Rick Pizzo did a good job as well. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed when it became coaches telling stories. So when I'm a dork, I'm a sicko, so obviously I'm going to enjoy that kind of thing. But I mean, we got Rick Pizzo talking about playing golf with Fred Hoiberg. We got Kevin Willard and Mick Cronin telling Rick Pitino stories. That stuff was enjoyable. So I liked it.
That's nice. You talked about yourself in the third person. Well done. Do you think that Fred, 4 weeks out from the start of the season, has his starting five locked down?
I don't know about lockdown, but I think he's got a good idea of it. I think the two guys that went to Media Days are going to be starting. I think I think
that Bryce Williams boy, Jacob last year,
he could be valuable off the bench.
I think he could have been better last year.
Yeah, well, Trey, his head coach said that too, and they said they're trying to make him a more all around player. But I think those two guys are definitely locked in. I think Raleigh Worcester is your starting point guard, and that goes along with some things Fred said last week as well. And then I think, the 4 and the 5, you probably would assume that the first true 7-footer in many years who's played power conference basketball is a likely starter. And then I think that 4 spot, becomes, the one that I don't want to say is a coin flip or up for grabs, but there are definitely some options there. So I think it's, maybe pretty close, but I don't think it's locked in just yet.
Okay. With that 4 spot too, clearly, that is a area where you could go the shooting route. You could go with a guy like maybe a smaller type Gavin Griffiths. You could look at different options. Andrew Morgan, you would think, would probably be very much in mix right there because he kind of gives you a little bit of that versatility. But is this just – we talked about the options with this roster. Is this where you're going to see, depending on the matchup, Fred has that ability to really tinker, especially with what you want to do at the 3 and the 4 when it comes to guys that are maybe a little bit hot, like the Essesians of the world. And again, I bring up Gavin Griffiths, that you can be flexible. You can go small at times, more so than they have been able to do this in years past.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 3 through the 5 is going to be where there's going to be a lot of tinkering and playing with different lineups. We heard talk a little bit about even lineups with Berke, Butenjel at 5, and we got some good insight on him as well. And from Fred and Bryce and Jawan, I think he could be a candidate to be your starting 4-man on opening night too. But I think the 3 through the 5, you've got options, in the post with Mia, Morgan, and Berke. You've got guys who play bigger than they are, like Jawan Gary. He could be your 4. He could also play out on the wing. You've got Gavin Griffiths. He could be a 3. He could be a 4. There's plenty of guys who could be all over the place, depending on opponents, depending on lineups, and with that. Early non-conference slate, there's going to be quite a few opportunities to tinker and play with some different lineups.
All right, we can chatter on this because you got to hear from all 18 coaches and teams on Thursday in Chicago. It has been since 2000. I don't know if you've heard this, Jacob. I'm gonna tell you. So brace yourself. I hope you're not driving. Since 2000, since the Big Ten has won a national championship in college basketball, that was Mateen Cleaves. He's had an interesting life since then in 24 years, but the bottom line is the Big Ten hasn't hung a banner at the office in Chicago. But 8 different times, they've been a game away from raising a banner. Does it happen this year? And if it does, who would be the candidate to win a national title in college basketball out of the Big Ten?
I do not think it happens this year. I think your best 2 candidates would be on paper would be the 2 schools in the state of Indiana, but I don't think either of them are going to be playing for raising a banner. I think the drought extends another season.
Okay, all right. 25 is a good. I think that's where you get wood. Then, and what you do for an anniversary. 18 teams will get wood. I could be off. I'm not sure. Never made it to 25.
A piece of a court.
Yeah, there you go. All right, go back to bed now.
I can't do that. I hope I didn't sound too dead tired, but no, we'll see how the rest of my day goes. But I appreciate the time.
What do you got going on today, anyhow? What do you got?
What do I got?
Got to get walk the dog. What I mean, go say hello to Padilla. Or what are you doing today?
No, I just gotta work my real job. That's all.
Okay.
Just gotta do that, and then there's and then a football team that we both are fond of plays tonight. But other than that, nothing too crazy.
Any teaser on the next podcast guest?
He hosts a rather significant national basketball podcast, and he may or may not work for Bill Simmons. There's the tease.
All right,
Larry
Did
Bird?
he used to do a show with Scott Van Pelt?
No.
Oh, okay.
He used to do a show with another former podcast guest of mine, Mark Titus, but now he does his own show for The Ringer.
That's awesome. You're going to be talking to Dick Weiss. That's going to be great. Can't wait to hear that.
Oh, yeah. Yep. No, it'll be must see, must listen.
All right, looking forward to it. Jacob, thanks for your time. Have a great week, my friend.
Yep, you guys too. Thanks.
That's Jacob Bigelow. 4 weeks from today, college basketball.
Didn't even bring up Cleveland, Detroit today. What the hell, Jacob? Come on.
The city?
Oh, the game.
The Cavs and Pistons?
What a Matthew Boyd, Tarek Skubal matchup. Hot takes.
Yeah.
What?
Charles Nagy against
Matthew
Jack Morris.
Boyd's got a lot to prove against his old team, the Detroit Tigers.
About as
We
much.
live in a world where Detroit had game 1 as a bullpen game, and you're throwing Matthew Boyd.
Might as well throw Woody Boyd.
Who has been one of the most effective starters since he joined Cleveland. Matthew Boyd, thank you very much, Gary. You have little faith. Yes, it is Tarek Skubal, and Cleveland is a lot of the times offensively challenged. So, yes, I do understand that there is a little bit of a roadblock into going 2-0 to Detroit, but I'm going to watch the game with some buddies.
Day game?
A little afternoon, maybe even a little day drinking, watching the game. Good Monday.
Maybe go to Home Depot, Bed Bath & Beyond.
Don't know if there'll be enough time. I don't know if there'll be enough time.
Stop by
Gary.
Olive Garden before the Royals-Yankees game.
Yeah.
You imagine if the Yankees would have lost game 1 with Rodon pitching tonight?
Happer being full uniform.
No, Yankee fans would be done. They'd be like, well, we're down 2-0. This is over.
Yep.
But somehow, some way, they found. I think that's going to be a fun series. But that game tonight will be over on 1180. The Chiefs will be right here on the Zone. So left side of your radio, you'll get the Royals game. Right side of your radio, you get the Chiefs. If you don't have one of those radios, go out and buy one today.
Yeah, it's like a second Prime Day.
So you can always listen to us on 1620 The Zone.
And this week's half-off deal is with Scary Acres now open for the 2024 season. 3 haunted attractions, the Master's Castle, House on the Hill, and the Haunted Woods. Listen with Unsportsmanlike Conduct every afternoon this week to win super combo passes that get you into all 3 haunted attractions. The deal goes live 9 a.m. this Friday morning. You can get the details under the Deals tab, 1620thezone.com.
Hey, you're a church-going fellow, right? On Sundays, the whole family goes to the Church of Bennington.
The Church of Bennington.
I'm not really familiar with the churches in
The
Bennington.
town
so
square.
Can I just be vague?
Yeah, we all just get together in the
Conestoga wagon and just go to town.
in the town square.
If not, if
we worship.
If you skip church, that's okay. You're like me.
I am like you. Actually.
Yeah, I just couldn't make it.
The church football.
Yeah.
Did you watch the Jets and the Vikings on the NFL Network with Rich Eisen?
I caught the second half of it, but was also on the golf course while keeping tabs of this.
Whoa!
Went out to Bentry yesterday over by Iowa West.
There you go. Yeah. We were both out in that area then.
Okay. All right.
I think I'd get a pass for watching football compared to going golfing. God understands it. You must watch football.
That's true.
I don't know if God understands we must play golf.
No, he does. Have you seen some of the beautiful courses? He designed those.
Really? I thought it was Tiger. But Rich Eisen, I was thinking of you because the fans sang, they had a fan sing-along in London yesterday with Oasis.
Oh.
So he started making puns about
he also
the Oasis
said
songs.
that they wouldn't be able to fill up an entire stadium. I bet too.
Oh, he's not going to say that.
Sold out of Soldier Field. I think it was one of our listeners shared on Friday. He was 16,000th in the queue to get Oasis tickets at Soldier Field next year.
And they can't fit that many people in there. But you know what? It's Chicago. We're used to selling out Soldier Field to watch overrated products.
Just play the Carolina Panthers all the time. You'll be
I
fine.
know, man. 27-7 at halftime. I was like, what the hell am I seeing here?
I think he's
Caleb Williams got going.
He's no Jaden Daniels, who might be in the running to be the MVP.
Yeah, they're going to win everything.
50-yard bomb. He's got, they're scoring points. It's all about points, man.
Yeah, he's got the it factor right now.
Well, I'm having trouble if I'm a Cleveland fan yesterday because that's what Deshaun Watson was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And Deshaun Watson.
And Deshaun's done.
Deshaun Watson should be sitting he should be sitting on the sidelines. I don't know when they're going to go to Jameis Winston, but.
Or Kelly Holcomb.
We're going to go to. We could do this all day.
Do it. I know. We can get Brian
Sipe
in.
Random post Brian Sipe Cleveland quarterbacks.
God, because
yeah,
the Bears had a run of this too, but Tim Couch,
Baker
the Browns,
Mayfield, Kyle
Garcia.
Allen had to be in there. Hell, I thought Kyle Allen was retired, and next thing you know, he comes in last night for the Steelers. So Russell Wilson was the third quarterback. He was the emergency guy.
Yeah,
he's starting. By the way, Justin Fields, that offense. Arthur Smith, man, when your mustache is better than your offense, it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And Russell Wilson's about ready to start in Pittsburgh. I mean, that was not a good offense last night against a team that had two other better defenders that were down.
And it's not good.
But Kyle Allen came in. I'm like, I thought the guy was done.
I did too.
And he actually kind of looked okay.
I mean,
when Fields went out for the play.
They've had the
they
Browns.
Need him account.
Getting
Everybody
back to the
needs
Browns,
an account.
though. I mean, like Bruce Gradkowski. Dilfer was a Brown?
Yeah, Dilfer ain't a college football coach, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah. But he likes taking pictures.
Brandon Whedon.
Oh yeah,
there's some good ones.
They had a stretch. You get the fan that will show up with the jersey that has all these the duct tape.
Those are amazing, by the way. And I will say this for Chicago. Thank you for getting DJ more and more involved. More involved.
That had a pain the Panther fans watching him do work yesterday.
I just want to make sure
win by your Bears.
That wasn't just hey, we're going to go after the old team and let him cook a little bit. Hopefully, Shane Waldron's starting to unlock a little something and making DJ Moore like a lot of touches in that.
DJ Moore could bail out Shane Waldron.
He could
because Caleb's looks okay.
Yeah, he did.
He's gotten better. He's now Jaden Daniels.
Is it any wonder too? They've also got DeAndre Swift more involved too, which is a nice thing.
Whoa, I mean. Things might be turning around. You just play Carolina all the time.
That's where I have to stop short and be like,
you're like the
Carolina.
Buffalo Bills. You know what? As long as we play bad teams, we look good. Our coach, makes mistakes and
admits it.
Carolina did get a win against Vegas, though, so it wasn't like they were winless.
They did. I mean, they looked like they were in it when they kicked off.
Yeah, they were there present. They were,
no hitter going through one.
Hey, question. Because this was what was taking up your time on Saturday. Could we get behind a 6 p.m. face-off for Saturday night games at Baxter Arena?
100%.
Is this going to happen?
So if you remember the 1 year, I think they only did it for 1 year. They did the 7:30 Fridays and then the 7 o'clock Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
The NCHC, I thought it was something that was encouraged by the NCHC, but it was to your discretion, but they thought it would be good to have the Saturdays earlier. You'd keep your Friday nights normal.
A couple of teams that play at 6 p.m. Central.
Actually, a lot of them do.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of them will play, whether it's if you ever see when Omaha's out on the East Coast. They're playing either Western or Miami. They're playing the Saturday game an hour earlier than what they did the Friday night game. I think the only two teams, honestly, in the NCHC, maybe Duluth does, but I know North Dakota and Omaha are the only ones that usually stick to the 7 o'clock both Friday and Saturday night. And I want to say North Dakota, and maybe it was for a TV purpose, they went earlier on one night. Everybody that I heard from, not just my family who was there, but other people really liked the 6 o'clock start. Really, I mean, we all did in the box. Damn it! I mean, the game went into overtime, and it was still like before 9 o'clock. It was great.
I like the Storm Chasers when school's in session. They play April, May, and September. They start at 6:30.
I think it's great.
Yep.
The Royals do that.
I think the Saturday games they start at 6.
Yeah, I would love if they did this. I think it's the way to go, because I get it why you're doing the 7 o'clock, or even when they did the 7:30, because you want to accommodate everybody with their work day. Don't want them to have to hustle right from work and get to the ice. You got time to get some dinner and everything. It's good for Aksarben Village too. But on Saturday, come on, why you got to have that thing at 7 o'clock?
Aksarben Village,
game days.
we're down Jonesboro's.
Yeah,
Jonesboro's closed yesterday. Moving out of that area.
They're moving out.
Yeah, they're gonna keep their other location,
Okay.
but they will not be in Aksarben Village where they've been for 14, 15 years. We had a lot of restaurants that have closed like in the last 2 weeks in Omaha. Like the old Chicago's now, I'm told, are closed.
Mm-hmm.
Mouth of the South downtown.
Sunnyside. I was telling you about that last week.
What was Meatball? Both of those. Yep.
I'll be eating
I feel
spam.
bad. I felt bad. I did not give Meatball its run out west like I had every intention of doing.
Oh, you watch the movie. It's fine.
It really is good.
Just doesn't matter.
Yeah, we had a stretch there of some either long time or well-known places that this was not a good last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Man, old Chicago's no more. I drank a lot of beer there.
Well, they still have the. Oh wait, okay. I don't mean to turn this thing back into Carney conversation, but
Yeah, I'm not driving to Kearney to go to
There
Old
used
Chicago.
to be the old Chicago Carney, but I could have sworn the last time
there used to be an old Chicago right in downtown Lincoln, which they had
Oh, yeah.
cheap beer night in the middle of the week.
I think I've been to that.
I had a
You
bad,
guys wonder how I got all my scoops from athletes. I'd go where the athletes were.
and they were at old.
I'd either
the,
try
the
and
OC.
I'd either try and be a runner to be an agent to
Yeah.
hook them up, or I knew where they would drink.
I've had two
Never got invited to their houses.
bad nights with old Chicago. One in Omaha and one in Lincoln. The one in Lincoln though had to do with going to old Chicago first, then going to Cliffs and see if they really did cap you at 2 Shark Waters, which I found out they didn't, and then I realized why they should. I didn't feel good. And there's a Lincoln Street that could prove that.
Old Chicago and downtown Lincoln had a prime spot.
Yeah.
Right there in the Haymarket, right across the street from it. Then was a Holiday Inn. Now it's the Graduate, which
I think.
So I told you guys on
gone.
Friday, that Rutgers had basically bought out the entire Graduate Hotel and the Single Barrel.
Big Ten money.
They had New Jersey police officers who are on security detail with the football program were standing outside to make sure that nobody
No one snuck in.
Yeah, no like random fans or just people like wandering through to use the bathroom came in.
So
serves you right. You got to beat 14-7. Don't ever do that again.
Good for them that they did that, because what I noticed at the
No, it wasn't. It was inconvenient for pregame shows.
Well, no.
The pregame show from Parents Weekend in front of the Union while I was drinking a Pepsi.
How was that?
Board of Regents, get it right,
First-
man. I shouldn't be drinking a
first
Pepsi.
of
I
all,
should have
is
a
it-
Coke in my hand.
Ooh.
But the Board of Regents,
Hockey did that up, by the way.
well, yeah.
A new era, I believe, was the read. A new era in Omaha athletics. Yeah, they
Board-
let you know.
Board of Regents cockblock Coke at Nebraska.
But they also allowed us to have beers at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah,
You can't win them all, Gary.
We're going to talk about that tomorrow.
That it wasn't unanimous.
There are some wild stuff that's being sent to the opinion pages that I read over the weekend about this. There's going to be fights now in Memorial Stadium. Watch out. Watch out. There are going to be brawls in Memorial Stadium.
People have a beer at the stadium as opposed to before the stadium.
Here's
crazy.
my bit of advice for Nebraska fans. When you get ready to go to enjoy the 25 season Memorial Stadium, I would go to a self-defense class before the season starts. Because according to a letter that was written in the Lincoln Journal-Star, it was actually a story. They interviewed somebody. This guy's like, there's going to be nothing but fights. People are just going to be fighting in the stands.
Like Escape from New York.
Come on.
I'm here to
Stadium
say that if there are fights in the stands, those fights have been in the stands before, long before alcohol got there.
There will be less fights in the stands with alcohol. Because if you were going to fight, you had every reason to fight over the last, few years of that football you had to watch.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's like an interview, and he said, I don't know if I'll go. I've been going since the game since 74. Now there's going to be fights in the stands.
Oh, those unruly fans. They get after it. They have a clear plastic cup filled with a nice little piece of barley and hops, and all of a sudden everybody gets all kooky.
You know what? Because at
fighting fuel.
Pinnacle Bank Arena this year, boy, I gave up my basketball tickets because there were people around me they were brawling.
Oh, I had to separate 3 fights in the berm at Haymarket Park this last spring.
I mean, it was crazy. I mean, a guy last year, they got into a fight, and he threw him out of the 200 all the way down to the 100, and then he jumped on top of him, and he just kept punching him.
Yeah, man.
And they threw him on the floor.
Yeah.
And all they did was they called timeout, they moved the guy off the floor, and they continued with the game.
Just like it used to be.
The Nebraska bullpen had to come out and break up a fight because 2 guys fell from the berm onto left field and started fighting out there near the warning track, and Nebraska baseball players had to intervene.
It's like profile last night.
Anybody ever been to a Creighton basketball game where there's just been nothing but brawls in the CHI?
Ask Dan Hurley.
I feel like that would have been a Civic Auditorium thing.
Like, were Creighton fans punching each other in the arm because they were drinking way too much?
Yeah. Like, stop it! They're giving each other Hertz donuts.
Going to be fights, all kinds of fights.
Yeah,
just unbelievable.
Because
fights.
you know how it starts, Gary. Is somebody says something that's offensive to the other guy, and so instead of taking a Pepsi and pouring on his head, you pour a beer on his head, and then when you get the beer poured on your head, you see red. You turn around and you sock the guy right in the mouth.
Just like
that's what happens.
Myers.
Yep.
As we have this discussion,
now it's on you.
Seth Davis just tweeted out, "Please be kind." So my conversation with somebody that was in the know about Pepsi and Coke tried to get into, because Coke is now at UNO.
And they're proud of it.
Oh yeah. So the other part of the marketing thing is you get into the grocery stores.
Yes. Now you have the jerseys and stuff there.
But yeah, like Coke has gone all in on promoting their partners in Omaha in the grocery stores.
Yep.
And so they wanted to get into another popular venue in this community. They could not. Pepsi responded. They really tried. Once they got into UNO, they tried to get into UNL because it's not just athletics, it's the whole campus.
Yeah.
And something got in the way. So I was talking to that person that not necessarily got in the way. And then we started talking about alcohol in the stadium. And he did say that there are valid concerns, but they have a plan in place that they will not have issues.
Okay.
That's how they're going to police it and all that stuff. And he's like, it didn't even cross my mind.
You know what?
Wait till you read the Journal-Star on Sunday.
I noticed my water changed on Saturday night. I had Dasani. Different bottles lined up there too. Oh,
telling
yeah.
you.
It hit good. Good. Very proud.
Just remember history with Coke. Coke greater than woke. Coke made Nebraska football.
Hey,
and the Dallas
the
Cowboys.
stuff that comes in the plastic bottle of the can, not in case you got to have some context here.
Well, there was we talked about this, a decent crowd at the exhibition game. I mean, I'm sure they're all excited about
I think you're going to go
hockey
about,
team.
I think you're going to go about Nebraska football and Coke.
Oh, no. This is the hockey.
We had that. I look at that issue.
Hockey and Coke. They had decent for the exhibition, decent crowd. I think it was for Mike Gabinet's team, but I also think a lot of people were that excited about Coke that they showed up for an exhibition game. They wanted to see it for themselves. They heard. They didn't know.
They just bathed in it like the sprinklers.
Yeah, a lot of cowboys. They made a movie, Cocaine Cowboys.
They did.
Yep, they loved Coke.
Again, are we talking about the same Coke?
It's Coke regular.
Different Cowboys.
Coke Zero.
Coke. What was the one? Oh, never mind. That was Pepsi Clear. Did Coke ever try to do a clear?
No, they didn't do Coke.
I'm a Diet Coke guy.
Okay. So anything Pepsi, you just kind of turn your nose at.
Those are the worst words when you're at a restaurant where they don't have Coke. Is Pepsi okay? No, it's not. I will drink.
No, I'll take the Everclear.
I will drink unfiltered water.
Just give me it from the tap.
We'll sneak in some emails that have come into the show, some texts, and some tweets as we wrap up this Monday edition of Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
Wait, not that Oasis? We had a request on the stream.
No. Why are we playing this?
I can't keep a straight face doing this, but that's
Okay.
That's better.
Well, this isn't Oasis either.
News out of Iowa City, where the Hawkeyes play host to Washington.
Brendan Sullivan's your new quarterback?
No.
Oh,
boy. You want to know why Iowa has struggled against ranked teams, especially top 10 of late after a good stretch where they were 8-8.
Because their quarterback plays below average?
Quarterback and offensive line play.
Mm-hmm.
Their offensive line is nowhere near what it used to be at Iowa.
And
that
includes Caleb Johnson.
And that includes, Logan Jones from Council Wesleyan Central. Good. But they used to have 5 just road graders, NFL guys.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't had that. And Caleb Brown, their wide receiver, has announced on Instagram that he will use his redshirt season and not play in any more games. And he hopes for the continued success of the program. He gone.
What did they not promise him NIL-wise? No, just kidding. It's immediately where I go now. When people now exercise that, you're thinking, oh, did they have an NIL deal?
Come and go NIL didn't come through.
Flaky Jake says Chiefs lose tonight, right, Gary? I don't know. I'm not. I don't know.
I just can't go against the Chiefs at home.
I would like to.
0-16.
Well, we got some injuries. We almost have as many active tight ends as wide receivers for tonight's game.
Okay.
5.5-point favorite of the Chiefs. David writes into the Equitable Bank inbox about James Williams, who had himself a day, him and Sierra Wright. And so much discussion about Sierra Wright's in the back end. We talked about a healthy Tommy Hill, what they might be able to do.
Yep.
But people are wondering, what happened to Prince, Will, and Cam Lenhart? Been quiet.
Especially Prince Will. There's been times this year that I've
Cam Lenhart. I mean, they're playing, but they haven't made any splash plays of late. So James Williams, the last 2 weeks, has 4 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
David writes in, we got to sit a few rows behind the Nebraska bench at the Illinois game without knowing much about him. I clearly remember seeing him on the sideline just thinking, wow, this is a dude right there. He certainly looks the part. Glad that staff has found a way to get him going. Love stories like this. Hope he only continues to develop further. He's got natural pass rushing abilities. He's got a nice little twitch.
Yeah,
and a
spin
move.
Oh,
and he's got an up and under. He looks like he has been coached by some NFL rush ends.
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit of Wistrom in him. There's a little bit of Crick in him. Randy Gregory is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But Nebraska hasn't had that kind of a guy that is a true natural pass rusher that we're starting to see with James Williams in a long time.
Yeah.
So can they make him into a 3-down guy? Because he's a little bit situational, which is perfectly fine. And when you're going to throw the ball, he's going to play a little bit more. But look 2 weeks from now, I bet James Williams is going to log the most snaps that he's logged since he's been at Nebraska.
The length that he has too. Now, that would also fall in the same category as a Grant Wistrom, who was also very lengthy. But I think people think of sort of the long, he's still building his body up. Make no mistake about that. But as far as still being a little bit more gangly than, say, a guy like Wistrom when he was fully developed, I can understand people would look at the body type of Randy Gregory and say, oh, okay, because remember, Randy Gregory was a little bit more slight. He was just so dang long. And I'm telling you, though, his ability on one-on-one battles, whether he's got the swim or you mentioned the up and under, but that spin that he had for this last sack, that was real deal stuff. That was impressive. And if he's adding that strength to it that he probably lacked a little bit last year, now has a little bit of that going on him, what they've done to his body. I think this goes from a good story to a legitimate, consistent contributor on this defense, especially in those situations.
He's smooth as a pass rusher. It's not quirky. It's not clanky. He's very, very smooth. Anthony writes in, speaking of Coke, because if you missed it, if you didn't stay up and watch Miami and Cal, near 1:30 local time, 2:30 in Miami that game ended.
By the way, I went to bed at 35:10. Just like Colorado losing to Stanford last year. When I woke up, I'm like, what the hell happened?
Well, there's a targeting call in there.
I saw it. Ended up seeing
field.
that. Yeah. The offensive lineman downfield on that was horrible.
Hey, at least the ACC is not hiding it.
That was worse than the targeting.
Anthony writes in the Equitable Bank inbox. All LPS schools and their venues have Coke products now.
Oh, so they're on the right path then.
I might have to
start winning some state titles.
Sneak down and go to a game at Seacrest.
And you say that always puts you right on the path for championships too.
Mm-hmm. But probably not this fall in football.
I noticed you weren't as confident there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, it's a path. Sometimes that path takes a couple of years. It's not always like instant success. It's just setting you up for the path. The path has to present itself, and it's up to you to whether you sprint on that path or you do a leisurely jog. Maybe you walk. Mm-hmm. You're on the path, though, as long as the path presents itself.
I hope so. We need Lincoln Public School football to improve. We need a lot more teams to improve. I don't think outside of North and Central, the OPS schools scored a point this weekend.
Are you getting bored with the lack of parity? I'm sensing this a little bit.
It's just very shallow. Also, good luck today. Tyson Terry is undergoing an MRI. So keep an eye on that. We hope for the best for the Nebraska recruit. Good dude from Omaha North, and in pursuit when football is over is his fourth straight state championship in wrestling at heavyweight. That'll do it for the show. Thanks to everybody that contributed. All of our fine guests from Ben Oddie to Evan Bland to Jacob Bigelow. All of those are up on the radio replay page where you can watch them, consume them, do whatever you'd like with them. That's on your own time. And then come back again tomorrow at 6 where we'll have a football game to talk about. More bye week. Matt Rule speaks today. And a couple of baseball games where we have 1-1 or 2-0.
You do it?
2-0.
All right.
Ooh,
all right. So
okay.
you got a confidence in the Yankees.
I'm taking Cleveland, baby.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Crossover is coming up next. We'll talk to you in 20 hours with another edition of Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.